Hello and welcome to our coverage of this year's American Cup. My name is Fiona Steil-Anthony and I'm here with Grandmaster Jon Ludwig Hammer. Mr. Hammer, today is day one of the finals and I will ask you the age-old question. If people were not here yesterday, then what did they miss?
Apparently, Hikaru was the first one to win a classical game in the open section. I gotta admit, I feel like Hikaru's games have all been quite exciting, maybe with the exception of the third one, the first he played against Dominguez 2 days ago. But yeah, apparently he was the first one to break the cherry and let's hope for more
Break the
decisive.
cherry.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't emphasize it, please. You know, when your co-host makes a mistake, just go with it.
I thought it was, the new wave, the cool kids lingo. I thought maybe I'm just not, you know.
I don't think I'm the one you should look to for cool kid lingo.
He
Pop the
popped his,
cherry,
he popped the classical wins in the open, Cherry.
something like that.
Something like that. Humble hammer. Strong start today, Chad. Strong start. So today Hikaru faces a certain Fabiano Caruana. Yesterday Hikaru was with us for the first two Blitz games between Fabi and Levon, and he actually had a slight preference for playing Fabi. Do you remember what the reasoning was?
Well, he talked about how Fabiano is in a bit of a weird place for motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I think he essentially thought that Fabi was an easier target than Levon, based on Levon is, he's trying to qualify to the candidates tournament, whereas Fabiano for the next year, the only thing he needs to do is prepare for the candidates tournament in March of next year. He's already qualified through the FIDE circuit, and yeah, he's able to experiment, but then experimentation maybe is not the way to win games. And
Mm-hmm.
he's coming off a really bad result at the Tata Steel tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Hikaru wasn't being he wasn't being he didn't have the fan perspective of wanting to see the number one against the number two. I think he genuinely felt like Fabiano could be an easier player to beat.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by his choice. I was happy to hear that. I saw today, speaking of qualifying to the candidates, I mean, Hikaru has repeatedly told us I will not be playing 40 classical games this year. But I saw a post on Twitter that said, if he plays the Grand Swiss, which is still up in the air, but then he'll already be fairly close. I mean, he has 6 games here. He will get 10 at Norway Chess.
He could potentially get two more games here, right? If he wins.
No, I think isn't that rapid.
The grand final?
Yeah. Or is it only the second match?
I would think it's only the second match, but let's
Anyway, we
stop
have lift
making
off.
assumptions. Yeah, not getting any moves on the board though, unfortunately, but that's because I was such a good boy today, getting my board ready. An hour before we went on, and that may have caused me to. I'm gonna do a hard refresh. Yeah, no, the hard refresh worked, but yeah. So I thought I was being good in terms of being ready for the broadcast, but turns out I was ready too soon, and I had to do a hard refresh. Here, Hikaru goes for the same opening that he went for against Dominguez and against Mishra. So my theory of, oh, you should target you should custom your openings to your opponent. That is not really being the case whatsoever.
I
But
think your I think your theory is good, and I think most players do that, but I think Hikaru is not like most players, right? He always says, I'm a streamer first. He's just much more busy. So I think Hikaru, unlike other players, I think we've seen him employ a strategy more of I'll prepare this one opening for this tournament and stick to it. Not always, but we've seen it happen quite regularly over the last year or two.
In any case, it is going to be a different flavor today than we have seen in the two previous white games of this same Catalan opening, because Fabiano takes the pawn immediately, whereas both Mishra and Dominguez moved the bishop into the game. Fabi takes the pawn and then he goes knight c6. The intention with this move is actually to free the b8 square, so that if white castles, then rook to b8. Why do you move the rook? Well, number one, you want to get it off this bishop's diagonal, pointing down towards the corner. But number two, this means that you on the next move can push the pawn up to protect the other pawn and actually just sit here and hold on to that extra pawn you grabbed early on. And in order to prevent this idea, Hikaru immediately brings his queen out to try and capture black's pawn. However, bishop b4, check on the king, but also intercepting the queen's access to the black pawn. Hikaru intercepts with his bishop the check, and now the normal way to play is knight to d5, and white's queen has to go a detour around the pawn in order to get the pawn back. But instead, Fabi just goes with his bishop back. I have not seen this move before.
Yeah, I've just checked on in the chess-based database. So knight d5 has been played 3,200 times, but bishop d6 has been played 400 times. And the top name with the black pieces is Kramnik, who played it in 1998, both against Anand and Karpov. So some big, big games there, big references.
Fabi taking us back to the previous millennia. He is going old school today.
So let's try and understand the ideas behind bishop d6.
So idea number one, if queen takes pawn, then castles, and you want to go pawn to e5. Basically, this bishop is placed here to protect this e5 square and enable your pawn to push forward there. There was a very interesting opportunity here to go knight to e5, opening up for the bishop in the same direction where the queen and now also the knight is pointing. And the engines kind of like this move for white. But if you're going to play this, you have to be prepared. And I guess Hikaru hadn't prepared this variation, so he chooses instead to just play it safe to castle his king. And now Fabi castles as well. And Hikaru, bishop to c3. So Hikaru says, I can take this pawn at a later stage. I would rather move my bishop to protect this e5 square and make it difficult for black to push this pawn up. And now a very interesting move is being suggested by the chess engines. Fabiano has instantly gone pawn to a6. Now he's threatening pawn to b5, which would create protection with the black pawns. So Hikaru now doesn't really have a choice other than to take the black pawn to make sure that one is not protected. And now pawn to b5 is the move being recommended here for Fabiano. Very, very interesting, because now if queen takes knight, it looks like you've just given away the knight for nothing. But bishop comes out, attacks the queen, queen moves, rook attacks the queen, queen takes another pawn. But it turns out there's no escape for the queen from the rook's attacks.
Very interesting stuff. I am still perplexed that the players have kind of blitzed into this because bishop c3 is actually a very rare move, has only been played 14 times, while taking on c4 is the main by far. And after bishop c3, a6, there's only one game remaining. White is unrated and black is 2200. So we've completely left already any kind of Catalan theory.
This is potentially very good news for Hikaru, though, because it means that he knows about this surprise Fabiano tried to spring on him.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see that the computer really likes White's position. I think if we look just at the evaluation bar, this is probably the biggest opening advantage Hikaru has gotten so far in this tournament. So let's go back to your move b5. I very much doubt that Hikaru will be happy to make an early draw here, so he's probably not going to capture on c6. Where is the queen going to go to instead?
Well, queen d3 seems sensible because then you're trying to go pawn to e4 afterwards. And this pawn push from Fabiano has indeed been played. Probably he just wanted to take a couple of extra seconds, making sure that he was not blundering a knight for nothing.
Oh, what?
Hikaru is not playing instantly, so it does seem like Hikaru did not know about this move. Probably the surprise here was this pawn to a6. No, that shouldn't be a surprise. Because
I think
Hikaru
it
was the
has to
one.
be Hikaru, yeah, who's surprised. So where did he?
It seems to me bishop to c3 is normal enough that it's something Fabiano would have covered.
Yeah.
So I think Fabiano is definitely in prep because he probably knew about this idea also to sacrifice the knight. But I thought I was thinking both players are still in something they had looked at ahead of time. But now with Hikaru thinking here, and it seems like this move came a bit unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, his body language tells the same story. We saw a look at the ceiling, we saw a little frown. So looks like b5 has indeed come as a surprise. I think it will not take Hikaru very long to figure out that queen c6 is just a draw. And then I think queen d3, as you were highlighting, looks like the most logical, right? The most central position for the queen.
Yeah, I'm very curious. After the bishop moves out, which is the obvious continuation there, why is Stockfish not recommending that we push forward in the center and take control there? Knight to b4 sees the knight attacking the queen while also attacking against this central pawn. And then after takes, I guess we're kind of struggling to keep both of these guys defended. Because if we now move our knight forward in the middle, expanding the bishop to defend our pawn in the center, then black can very easily attack the other central pawn. And we still haven't gotten the knight into the game because, well, let's be honest, we have moved the queen rather a significant amount of times.
That is certainly true. Yeah, so this
So
doesn't look
maybe,
great.
yeah, I'm going back because I'm starting to think maybe e4 is not such a big success to get to play.
So you're saying maybe we don't go to d3 if we're not going to follow up with e4.
Yeah. At the very least, it means that the main idea of going to the middle rather than staying on the edges has kind of been, yeah. I
Hammer,
wouldn't say disproved, but
I have a question for you, and be honest here. Imagine you're playing someone very similarly rated to you. You're right, and you get this position. It's been a grueling tournament. Is there any part of you that's like, okay, let's just take on c6 and get a rest day?
I think in an open tournament, yes. If you're kind of, if it's I don't mean an open tournament, I mean if it's a Swiss tournament where it's all about getting as many points as possible, and you're doing well in the tournament, you're facing someone else who's also doing well, and both of you can be like stay in the top if you make a draw, then maybe queen takes knight would be tempting. But in a match situation like the one Hikaru's in right here, I think there's no chance. You feel like you have to try to use your white games to put some pressure on the opponent. And also it's like it's giving the opponents confidence, right? If you seem scared to play them from just a normal looking position, and also they're gonna have the white pieces tomorrow.
That is true. I very much doubt. I mean, especially Hikaru has talked about this on a few occasions. He said, "Well, I could make the draw, but I felt I should really play on." There's an interesting question in the chat from where was it? From Joseph asking, "Can we see the line if Hikaru takes the rook instead of taking a draw? So queen takes c6." And his argument that we get a knight, a pawn, and a rook, which is equal material for the queen.
Yeah, so the question then becomes, do we want to take the rook on a8 or on b8? I guess probably a8, because then we can make an attack from our bishop afterwards. Something like this. I mean, it feels reasonable to me to do this. But I will say that over the past couple of years, we have realized that the queen is a bit more valuable than we thought. So I would say 10 years ago, people would consider this and be like, ooh, that's interesting. But nowadays, we've had so many more. So back in the day, the two rooks in trade for a queen was pretty much always considered superior, having the two rooks. But these days, with the modern chess engines, they've kind of showed us how the queen is a stronger attacking piece than we thought. And that the queen can very often create attacks against the opposing king, and that the two rooks are not necessarily so easy to get working together. So, in my opinion, there's been a shift in the assessment of queen sacrifices in favor of doing fewer queen sacrifices.
And the computer seems to confirm that here the position is okay, but as we can see from the eval bar black, the computer slightly favors black. So who knows? Hikaru is still thinking. I also expect him to play queen b3 or queen d3. I'm still not sure which of the two I prefer.
In the meantime, let's check up on some of these
Rapid games.
loser bracket games.
I thought you were going to say some of these losers.
I'm sure I will at some point, but the exhaustion hasn't kicked in just yet.
Let's go there. Let's start with Levon against Wesley So.
Wesley is getting kind of low on time, but look at the pawns, Fiona.
Hmm.
Both players have double e pawns.
By the way, Hammer, since we're talking of the elimination bracket, you are correct that the final will be 2 classical games. So that's an extra 2 games that I think the comment on YouTube hadn't even counted, taking it up to from 33 to 35. And we're very, very close.
Yeah, he would need another tournament though. Well, I mean, how many games did that they count for the
So they
World Cup in
counted.
that
So
case?
if Hikaru beats, okay, he has 6 games guaranteed here, right? So 6 games guaranteed here, 10 in Norway, 11 at the World Cup, 11 at the Grand Swiss if he plays that. So that brings us to what, 17 plus 27 already? And then he counted 6 for World Cup. But he could
Which is
potentially
not
get more.
a super
No,
optimistic.
no. So, I mean, if Hikaru goes to the final here, that's already, we're up to the 35. And if he goes far in the World Cup, suddenly he's just, I mean, he might be there, or at
Well,
least
the
he'll
thing
be
is, if he goes
very,
far
very
in the
close.
World Cup, he's already qualified for the
That
candidates,
is
right?
true, actually. That is a good point. We're talking about the number of games needed to qualify by rating for the next candidates. And it is, I think, 40 games, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah. And Pratsnok, no, if Magnus doesn't, well, Magnus will be the highest rated. He will not take the spot. It's not going to be used. It will go to the next person.
Also, Magnus will not take the top spot because he's definitely not getting 40 games.
That is a very good point. Yeah. So yeah,
I've been doing some research on this because I'm now
uh-huh.
a podcaster.
What have you been researching?
Well, the qualification for the candidates and
Mhm.
other topics that has to do with the world rankings. Because I
Interesting.
am now this is self promo. I don't know if that's frowned upon. I guess it is,
I think
but
it's
I'm gonna
fine.
do it anyway. World rankings with Hammer and Howl. I'm
Is that a recent one?
expanding my horizons. What?
Is that a recent one?
We just made it. We had our first episode March 1st.
Oh, that I still haven't seen actually. I saw that you talked about women's weightings. I think I saw some clips. Sorry, Hammer, I'm yet to watch the full thing, but
That's
it's on
that's
my.
fine. I haven't seen a single podcast in my life, including the ones I myself participated in. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, yeah, you see, it's not that I'm not supporting him, chat. It's just we have an understanding. Our life has enough chess in it as is. We're not gonna spend. We will spend some of our spare time on chess, but not consuming every content. There's so much content out there, honestly. It's hard to keep up with everything. Anyway, so
Yeah,
what's the assessment of
Wesley
this?
is a bit low on time, but I have no idea what's going on with these pawns. And I'm gonna need some more moves to happen before
I
I
just
have any idea what's
I
going on.
just realized, Hammer, you missed the trick. You could have called your podcast H squared podcast or the HH as suggested. Was that? No, that wasn't suggested like that, but H squared, Get some competition going.
But the squared thing is just a bad gimmick, no? I really like clear language. So really explaining what we're all about in the title, I'm all for that. We're talking about world rankings. You get what you expect. No
Oh,
surprises.
and you always talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't then
On the first of every month.
I hadn't even understood yet.
Once a month.
Well, oh, now okay, I get it now, Hammer.
New rankings every month on
I
the
get the
first.
concept. Ratings come out every first of the month, as does your podcast.
Let's jump into the Dominguez versus Sevian game because things are going on there while Hikaru is still thinking about where to put his queen. Sevian is down. Oh my God, Dominguez is in his prep. Dominguez still had more time than when the game started. He was above 25 minutes when we got into this.
That's crazy. Let's quickly see what happened in the opening.
It's got to be a Najdorf or something, right? Oh gosh, Sevian is playing this rubbish French again. So this knight e2 idea is super popular after it was utilized by Gukesh. Although it must be said, Gukesh played knight c2. He played knight e2 here. But Dominguez is doing it somewhat later. But it's still a pretty good idea. Basically, you're trying to go with a pawn forward to reinforce and get this pawn chain, pawns defending one another. And then after you do that, you just go bananas on the king side, is the general idea. Wow, Sevian is stopping the pawn from getting to the h6 square, but that means the g6 square opens up. Rook forward, okay. The rook is going to place itself here to point at the king. Rook f7. How is this part of Dominguez's prep? How do you expect this rook f7 move? That is wild. It's not even on the top 3 recommended.
This is very, very impressive.
He played king f2 in 4 seconds.
And this was the top move, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Putting his king on the same file as this rook. Sevian tries to open up to attack. Ooh, and now he pushes through the center of the board. It's a pawn sacrifice in the center to get the queen and bishop pointing at the king. But Dominguez keeps playing in 2 seconds. So both players are in their prep at this point. The queen has to recapture in the middle, but then she abandons the rook in the corner. So Dominguez sacrifices his rook, but then the knight comes in all the way on the other side. And Dominguez gets an error for this knight move, for which he spent 2 minutes. And then, wow. So both players were in their prep. Dominguez was actually the one first to use any time, playing knight d4 here. And then Sevian spent 14 minutes on a single move, more than half of his time, and made a double question mark.
This game is wild. I mean, double question mark might be a bit of an exaggeration. We went from zeros to 0-6, no?
Yeah. But there seems to be some argument for why it's deserved. The rook is being lured into the same diagonal as the black king. And yeah, that's a bit of trouble. Even here, though, it's like they have the same amount of pieces. Oh, no. Opening up between the queens, and then the queen is no longer attacking the knight. And white has an extra bishop. Yeah, Dominguez is going to have to try and figure this out. And even if he finds this knight move, he's not even winning after that. Because apparently there's some kind of freaky knight takes in the center opening up for the bishop.
Crazy. This is a wild, wild game. That is for sure. Meanwhile, wow, Hikaru is still in the tank after b5. Which I did not see coming. Okay, so let's go back to try and understand what's preferable. Or do you want to go back to the other rapid game?
Well, I was thinking we can stop by at least Levon and Wesley. I did say I don't understand anything of those doubled e-pawns in the center. Yeah. And that situation has resolved itself. Both players, 4 pawns total on the e-file, but 1 trade in the center, and they went from 4 to 2. And the situation is much easier understood now. White, which is a run-in, has a pleasant advantage due to the fact that he has two of his pawns inside the opponent's half. This d pawn is actually coming from the f2 square.
It's just funny. So white with a small edge. Small edge on the clock as well. Quite a significant edge, in fact. 5 minutes up.
Yeah, and I think white's edge is bigger than what the engines say. This feels very pleasant for Aronian. It feels like a bigger advantage than the plus 0.22 being indicated.
Okay, we'll come back to this one as it probably heats up very soon. Remember, this is the elimination bracket where they play rapid games. Maybe a quick look at the women's final. I'm probably catching you off guard here.
No, well, the thing is, I had the women's final completely loaded, but because I had to do the hard refresh, I don't have the women's games
As
anymore.
you said, you're too well prepared, Hammer.
But I can find them. Let's go here. And then...
This is a classic, actually, Crush against Satonsky.
Yeah, definitely. This is the classical game, the winners final in the women's section. The very young Alice Lee facing up against Tatev, who took down the #1 seed.
Carissa, yep.
Carissa, yeah, yesterday.
So Carissa, who is Carissa playing today? She is down in the elimination bracket playing against Nazi Paikidze.
Oh.
And we arrived just in time here to see a big blunder.
That's a good move.
Oof, that rook on h1. Not looking too happy. This is just over.
Yeah.
An extra piece.
No, because you can go knight to defend, right?
Yeah, I have
and then if
options
pawn takes here, then queen takes knight.
Then I guess I take the other option of taking on c1 or what?
Oh God, you're sacrificing your queen? I was gonna say let's just go g6 to defend, because it's not like this guy can move anyway.
Yeah, that looks strong too, but not the strongest. Let's see.
Knight to b6 is being recommended by the engine, increasing the pressure on the knight that cannot move because of the rook in the corner. And then Fiona's idea of sacrificing the queen in trade for 2 rooks, not being advertised as the best.
But I thought I had 2 rooks and a piece.
You do.
So why am I losing?
There's an incredible trick with the knight coming in, check on the king. The king has to move. Then the knight sacrifices itself.
Disgusting.
Against the black pawns. And after these captures, even though it's a bishop and 2 rooks in trade for a queen and 3 pawns, apparently white is completely winning, which actually is a very nice apropos to the comment, to the discussion we had earlier about these days, the queen is valued more than it was in the past. And the modern computers have shown us that the queen is an amazing attacking piece, sometimes, well, apparently even outgunning 2 rooks and a bishop.
Yeah, so queen c1 is not the one. g6 is good. Knight b6 is even better. Did we get moves after queen c6?
So knight to c3 has been played. And now I'm expecting g6. Knight to b6 is also very good. Is even better.
I think she'll go
and we'll
knight
see
b6,
what
no?
Nasi
Doesn't
goes
knight
for.
b6 just win a piece on the spot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what she did.
We'll see if Carissa is in the mood to play on with a piece down, but I honestly very much doubt it. What a blunder. Let's show that moment one more time where she played knight d5, because the position was completely fine.
Her opponent played the knight to f5. She thought, ooh, this pawn is overworked, protecting both in the center and the newly arrived knight. She thought she could benefit from it, having seen that the queen check
Hammer, I'm
against.
sorry to interrupt you, but let's go back to Hikaru. It looks to me like he's about to take on c6. He twice reached out with his hand towards the knight on c6, and he's been doing a bit of head shaking. Do you see what I'm seeing in terms of body language? Like, this does not look like a Hikaru who's about to play queen b3 or queen d3. Would
I
be
don't
a
know.
big
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're taking the knight, it's gonna be because you think you can take Fabi in the blitz, right?
Yeah, or because maybe, he was trying to remember what to do here, wasn't sure. And I think, as always with these guys, the more time you burn, and I mean, he burned half an hour against the same opponent just a couple of weeks ago in the Champions Showdown, and it cost him the game. So I think you can also get a little bit spooked. I mean, Hikaru is getting very close to having spent half an hour here. And maybe the more time was passing, maybe the draw became more and more tempting as time went by. I don't know.
But black against Fabi is such a dangerous thing.
Mm.
And if you take the knight, it is kind of showcasing to the opponent that you're lacking some confidence.
Well,
Forcing a draw with white after only 10 moves is.
I think we're about to get the answers to all our questions. It's a black screen for now. What will come first, queen c6 or Hikaru on the call?
Well,
How you
now
guys
I know
doing?
the answer. Hey,
There you guys go.
Hikaru,
How you guys doing?
she
Right on
takes the
cue, as
knight.
you appear, queen
Hmm.
c6 appears on the camera and on the
Mm-hmm.
board.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
We are doing good. How are you?
I'm okay. I mean, obviously, since it's a 30-minute delay, I've had a bit of time to look at what happened, of course, and go through it. Definitely not happy with how short the game was. I would have liked for it to have gone longer. That being said, Fabiano came up with this A6 idea, which I had not seen. And frankly, during the game, I wasn't sure if I was confused or whether I'd forgotten move order or what had happened. But then I spent more and more time, and I mean, I didn't really think that anything could come from it if I played on. Like if I played Queen D3 in like 5 minutes, maybe it's reasonable. But once I go into the deep think in a situation where there's no, sorry, not no increment, where there's no added time at move 40, it didn't seem practical to be down half an hour on the clock against someone who's not a human. Because obviously at this point Fabiano is still stockfish. He's playing all the moves from his prepared file before the game. So from a risk reward standpoint, it just made no sense to me to play on once I had started spending my time.
Once you started spending your time, was the game against Fabi from the Champions Showdown also a little bit at the back of your mind, or?
No, I mean that had actually that had nothing to do with it. I mean it was more the fact that I was trying to figure out, did I forget a move order? Did he come up with something new? What was going on? And I wasn't really sure what the answer was. And obviously I'm not going to reveal that right now because if tomorrow's game is say a draw, there will be tiebreakers, and who knows what I will or won't play. So I'm not going to reveal that right now what the actual answer to that question is. But it just, yeah, it wasn't on my mind. It was more the fact that it's just you, though. I mean, people might be surprised to realize this, but during games, there are a lot of situations where it's more about thinking about it from like the risk reward. I've said this before, apparently, someone pointed out to me that there's this silly online forum, and there was some thread about people getting angry about me saying something that was very truthful about the candidates tournament yesterday. But then furthermore, to give another hot take, the way that I look at top level chess is you prepare very hard, you try to get your opening preparation on the board, but then when you're in the game, a lot of what happens in terms of decision making is not pure calculations. It's actually about it actually ends up becoming about risk reward. And I've said before that I think chess players, top ones, are basically glorified risk managers and nothing else. So it's like I started thinking about the situation. It's like from the risk reward standpoint, if I'm down 30 minutes on the clock, Fabiano is super prepared. He's obviously stockfish. He's not Fabiano at this point in the game. So he's going to be blitzing out another couple of moves. I haven't been good when I get low on time lately. And also when I did my calculations, I didn't think I was better even if I played on with Queen D3. So what good can come from that? It basically becomes a situation where I look at it as best case, it's a draw, and if I do something wrong, I'm probably going to lose the game. And that's not the rate. That's not the risk reward ratio that you ever want. Whether you're playing chess, markets, poker, whatever it might be, that's not what you want. So that was basically the rationale for why I chose to make the draw. Ultimately, if I played Queen D3 in 5 minutes, it's different, but that's how it goes.
So Hikaru, you're talking a lot about thoughts you put into this before making the decision to
Hmm.
to force the draw. I want to ask, did you consider the your probability of winning should this go into a blitz playoff?
No, I mean, I think it's been very clear both from my play, but everybody's play that Blitz is just like, I mean, it's gonna be a show. So, I mean, both players are probably gonna blunder. It doesn't matter whether it's me and Fabiano playing or others. I mean, we've seen a lot of horrible blunders already, and I think there are gonna be more blunders if we play tiebreaker. So no, it's not a situation where I'm thinking about it as like I'm a favorite in the Blitz. It's more just what are the chances of me like. And to use like yesterday's game as an example, there was this moment when Dominguez played Bishop G5, and I could have made the repetition, and I didn't. I didn't make the repetition there because I thought that it was a two-result game where either it's a draw if Dominguez plays very well, or I win the game if he gets sloppy and makes a mistake, or if I outplay him. So in that case, it's the risk reward ratio that you want, but here it wasn't. So it had nothing to do with like thinking about my chances in blitz or anything else. It was just simply a situation where I thought that it made sense to be just to be kind of like be practical.
This is your third white game, and in all the white games, you've played the Catalan opening.
Hmm.
What are your feelings on the success of that? And is it something you're gonna keep doing this tournament?
Well, I mean, I should have beat Mishra. If I beat Mishra with that Catalan, all's well that ends well. Yeah, I mean, it's a very solid opening, but frankly, what I would say is that there's no magic bullet in chess anymore. Chess is a very equal game. You're just looking for little ideas here or there. It doesn't matter whether you play the Spanish, you play the Italian, or whether you play the English, or a Catalan or Ragozin or whatever system it might be. You're looking for little ideas. So I feel completely fine with it. I would say also, frankly, that I think I've gotten what I wanted out of the first two games. I mean, I slowly outplayed Mishra. I mean, maybe I had that one moment against Dominguez where I could have been better at least. But getting an advantage, even if it's point 3 or point 4, is really all that you can ask for. You can't really expect to win games out of the opening anymore. That's just not how modern day chess is. So I'm not really that unhappy with the opening. And also, I would say, the fact of the matter is, people can laugh at me all they want about it, but I do have a job as a streamer. Like streaming is how I earn my income, how I earn my living. So I also can't be studying chess 10 hours a day like some other players. And by the way, I'm not referring to Fabiano when I say that, but I don't have the same time, so I try to pick my opening systems, try to make them work, and I think it's completely fine.
So far in this tournament,
Hmm.
you've gotten big advantages with black in both your black games.
Hmm.
Um, is that a complete accident, or is there some deeper meaning behind it?
I mean, I think the deeper meaning behind it is that in everybody's mind, you still think that you're supposed to get an advantage with white. It's like I made this reference to the good old book and how like there's certain themes and certain things that like you grow up being taught, like in a game of chess, the fundamentals. Like if you have one weakness, you can always defend it. If you have two weaknesses, your opponent probably can beat you with perfect play. And so it's the same thing how like with the white pieces, you're also always supposed to try and win the game. With white, you're supposed to put pressure on your opponent, and I think that a lot of people, it's very hard to get away from that mindset. And it's very easy to sort of overpress and try to be really aggressive because in your mind, you think that having the white piece is an advantage when I think in modern day chess, it pretty much is not an advantage at all. If you get lucky, if you get lucky and your opponent makes mistakes or you out prepare them, like good things can happen and you generally control the flow of the game. But realistically, like white is not an advantage the way that it was when, say, Gary Kasparov was the world champion, or even Anatoly Karpov before that. When I think having the white piece was a big advantage, but computers are the great equalizer, and I think it's very easy to overpress with the white pieces and think that you have to prove an advantage when it doesn't exist.
I also,
Yesterday, oh, sorry, Fiona, I
Timer,
just have
maybe
one
you can
one more
ask your,
question.
yeah, ask your question. Maybe we would just pull up the Sevilla and Dominguez game while we continue the interviews, so we have something to
Yeah,
look
sure,
at.
absolutely.
And go ahead,
Yeah,
Hammer.
yeah. One final question. Um, in your game against Dominguez yesterday, you
hmm
played this D5 move, which kind of exposed your pawns to being a
hmm
bit weaker or
hmm
potential weaknesses in the position. And
hmm
against Mishra in the black game, there you played the Sicilian.
Yes.
Would you say you are more willing to take risks with the black pieces?
Um, I mean, it's I would say it's a little bit easier in a sense. I mean, everything depends on your opponent. Some people like Arjun will go crazy and try to win with both colors. Some people will be very solid. I think in general, it's more on the player with black to decide the course of the game. Weird as that sounds, because like if I said this 10 years ago, everyone would be like, every top gen would be like, "What are you even talking about?" But in general, I feel like it's more on black to decide than white these days. Like normally, white has the openings and black has to decide. For example, do you play e5 on move one? Do you play the Sicilian? What do you
Oh
do?
my God, Sevian just blundered his bishop.
Yeah. And this also getting back to another thing I was saying, like this is the other thing that I was saying. Like you see blunders, like in people get low on time and nobody seems to have a brain anymore, whether you're young or old. But yeah, I think it's actually more on black to decide, so it's a little bit easier because I think black has more of the decision than white does.
Interesting. For I'm still shocked by the blunder here. Now Dominguez gonna take
But
game
wait,
one.
but where's oh, the win is that you move the queen to a1, right? Because if you move the bishop, there's still a
Oh,
repetition, right? Maybe queen h4 there,
well, I
queen's
was
f
thinking, I was thinking you can just move the bishop.
queen h4, queen h4, queen f4, queen c1. There's a repetition.
Oh, so
Ah, I
maybe he
didn't
didn't
see the
actually.
C1
But
square.
but, but I mean, but Dominguez has 16 minutes. I mean, you got 16 minutes. You can get up, go get a coffee, and come back to the board, and I mean, he'll figure it out.
Hikaru, I also have a couple of questions. You talked, you said a couple of times in recent
Oh wait, no,
interviews.
wait, no. Queen a1, there's queen h4. Wait, no, wait a second. No, wait a second.
Oh, that's also.
Wait, so the win is maybe it's queen a no, queen a7, queen h4. Wait a second.
So it wasn't actually a piece blunder. I think
Ah,
Sam
no. You
literally.
probably have to go like bishop, maybe bishop a6, check, queen f4, g3, mate. G3, queen e3. Wait, this is actually tricky. Wait, no, but then queen e3. No, wait a second. This is actually very tricky. Wait a second.
Do you want me to check the answer or do you want to try and figure
I
it
want
out?
to try and figure it out. Queen a3, queen f1, bishop d3, check, g3, queen e3. Wait, this is tricky, actually. This is tricky. Wait a second. This is not obvious. No, now I'm staring in a little bit. Queen e3, king g2, queen e4. Wait.
Hammer doesn't know the solution, chat. Neither of us. We see the evaluation, but we don't see the lines right now. Unless Hammer, you figured it out.
Oh, if I figured it out before Hikaru, you would know. I would be screaming.
G3, Queen E3. No, this is not obvious at all. I actually I don't see it right off. I don't see it. This is very weird. It has to be a bishop move, though. It has to be a bishop move because nothing else can work. Can't move your rook. You can't move your king.
Well,
Queen
there's a
A1,
very
Queen H.
limited amount of bishop moves.
Yeah, Queen A1, Queen H4 is just a draw. Queen B2, Queen H4 is just a draw. It has to be a bishop move. G3, Queen E3.
I feel like it has to be a queen move, but I'm basing that on nothing at all.
It's not a queen move. It has to be a bishop move. But what can it
We
be?
already looked at two of the bishop moves, right?
Check. Queen E. There's always Queen E3 though. No, I'm actually confused. I don't see it.
Shall we check the solution?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
It is a bishop move.
Yeah, but Queen H4? Queen F4? Queen E3? Yeah, this is what I saw. Why is this winning? Oh,
Ah.
Bishop F7. Oh. Bishop F7, that's why.
Oh
Rook
wow! And
D
then
rook
rook
and
d.
Bishop D5 G2. Oh, wow. Ooh. But see, if Dominguez didn't have 15 minutes, I think this would be a draw for sure. But he still
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
lot of time to think.
But so Sam probably didn't blunder the bishop. He probably wanted
Yeah,
this.
he probably thought this was Bishop F7. That's very nice. That's very nice. I think I'm not sure that Dominguez is going to find it, by the way. I'm not sure at all
Yeah,
that he's going to
me
find it.
neither.
Oof.
Because
But
in order
anyway,
to
yeah.
find it, you need to be kind of convinced that there is something, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy in this position to just be like, oh, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working.
I mean,
That's
you
nice.
like we couldn't find it here while knowing that there was a win. At the board, there is nobody who tells you, "Hey, you have a winning." He will, of course, look for something, but he doesn't have that confirmation
Yeah.
that we have.
That's rough. That's rough. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably still winning, but we'll see if he finds it. So anyway, back to what you guys what we were talking
Yeah, so
about.
I was talking about in interviews you had said, there's no way I'm going to be playing 40 games this year. And then earlier today, I came randomly across a tweet that was saying that actually, if you do play Grand Swiss, which I know you haven't decided yet, that you might actually be quite close already because you have 6 games, at least 6 games here, potentially 8. You have 10
Yeah, I mean,
games.
I said before, I don't intend to play the Grand Swiss. It's a world away, and it's just not in my interests.
Okay. I thought you had.
I was going to talk about something separately though, which is like, a lot of people, there have been a lot of people who've come into chess in the last like couple of years who really don't. I mean, I don't mean to be like really negative, but who do not understand what chess is about, and as it relates to candidates very specifically, the fact of the matter is the tournament is a lottery in the sense that a lot of it comes down to one or two very critical games and who is in form and who isn't in form, as opposed to who the best player is. And for example, a lot of people, I saw someone mention this stupid thread to me. A lot of people act like I'm super salty or whatever because I never won the candidates. The fact is, you have players who are better than me, like Levon Aronian, who is #2 in the world for probably at least a very solid 5 or 6 years at some point, who never won the candidates. You have Fabiano, probably clearly the second strongest player after Magnus in this generation. He only won it once out of like 6 times having played. And there are many other players who have failed to win it as well. So, when I talk about the tournament being a lottery, it comes down to factors that are outside your control ultimately, and that doesn't mean that you can't win. Of course, there are freaks of nature like Nepo or Anand. But even Magnus, when he won in 2013, I believe, he was very fortunate because he won a game towards the end of the tournament against Radjabov that he never should have won. And then there was that crazy final round where both he and Kramnik, I think lost to Ivanchuk and Savitla respectively. So basically, the fact is that if you get to that tournament, it's very much a situation where you have no control over your destiny. A lot of it is going to come down to one or two games somewhere that can make or break the event. And then separately, as
Well,
it relates to
can I
sure,
just I want to interject with
sure.
one thing in support of you
Yeah.
and one thing against
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Well, I'm going to
The
get to freestyle, which is the second component in a second. But
Yeah, the one thing against you is that I disagree that you
Mhm.
don't control your own destiny because you can just win all the games.
I guess from that, yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, you can, but like, I'll give you an example. And, a lot of credit
Well,
goes to Gukesh for the game against Ali Reza, but that is a game that I think in almost any other tournament that was like round 11 or something, I don't think Gukesh wins that game. I don't think he wins that game if it's not in the candidates tournament. Ali Reza, I think, was equal or better for a large portion, but then Gukesh, his perseverance, just keeping the game going. Eventually, Ali Reza, who was having a bad tournament, collapsed and lost the game. So you're right that you can just win every game. Like Nepo did that in 2022. He just won every game and blew everybody away. And I mean, hats off to him because that was just a tremendous performance. But I feel like usually that's not how it goes. Most of the time, it does not work out like that.
yeah, because
Um,
what your point is
I mean,
that
Vishy did it too, by the way. Vishy did it too. When Vishy won it the second time, I think he just dominated the event from start to finish, if I remember correctly. So it does happen when someone just dominates, but it's not the norm. It's definitely not the norm.
I guess Topalov also in St. Louis, but um yeah, because my point was going to be what you're talking about is
Uh-huh.
when the top players make draws against one another, like happened now. Oh, he found it.
Well, that's what happens when you build the time edge. You give yourself 15 minutes and yeah. Very nice from Dominguez. Very, very
Wow.
nice.
But yeah, I was saying that it very much is decided by your results against the guys who's doing poorly in the tournament rather than the
Hmm.
results head to head. Do you think there's a different format that could be used if it was a single round robin and then some kind of to get more games between the top players of the tournament to
I,
get some decisive games among those in the lead rather than it being about who manages to beat the
yeah.
lesser
I
players?
mean, I don't really have a problem with the format, honestly. Like I don't have a big problem with it. I just think that ultimately it comes down to strange games, strange results, things happening that you don't control. But I also would argue it's hard to find a format that's better in a sense because finding, I mean, everybody plays everybody twice. Like it's I think more what it is that the big difference is in the candidates is a winner take all. And that is because, for example, just to use Norway buff 7, by the way, great move. Just to use Norway as an example, is in the middle or the bottom half of the floor. You care about the money, you care about the rating, but in the candidates, because it's a winner take all, I mean, it's a winner take all. If you're not first or last, really every other tournament that change dynamics completely.
So if
Did
the
we just?
prices were higher
Mm-hmm.
for the number one in the candidates tournament, do you think that
Sorry, say that again. Is that what were
if
you saying?
if the pair to eighth plus a bigger gap, do you think that?
Maybe, but I don't think so. And the reason I'm happening is because at the end of the day, you're basically guaranteed $1 million. Then eighth is so insignificant. I don't know if we're dropping frames or not. I'm not sure. Because of freestyle chess, where there are 5 or 6 events this year, that takes up a chess. And I tend to agree with him, which is that again, getting back to risk reward and financials. The fact is, if you play the freestyle events and I mean, I'm perceiving that I should finish in the middle of the field every time. That's gonna basically, let's just say 4 tournaments times 50 grand or whatever. That's $200,000. Now, people probably are aware of this, but if you win the Canada's tournament, the first prize is only $90,000. So if you win that, you are going to play the World Championship. But already I mean, anybody can win the Canada's. Everybody's very strong in that tournament. And if you finish any other event, or not any other event, any other spot in the field, you're probably going to be making like 50% less or more than that relative to if you play in all the freestyle events. I guess the stream is back. So, um, I mean, Fabiano was saying that it's basically like 500K equity, and I don't know if I agree that it's $500,000. But if I presume that in those events I should finish in the middle of the field, or better, that's basically like, let's just say there are 4 more events. That's $200,000. Winner of the candidates gets $90,000 or around there, I think. So if you look at the way that I do, where I think it is a lottery and anybody can win the tournament, and it comes down to random things, like it doesn't make sense to decide to forego those events, where I think I have a pretty decent chance of finishing in the top half, to go and play 40 games in tournaments and make financial sacrifices.
Are the older players on the circuit a bit jaded and now care more about money compared to the young guys who may want to make their legacy with titles instead?
No, but I mean, even that's complete nonsense too, because the fact of the matter is, the fact is people will try to qualify, but nobody is going to go out of their way to financially harm themselves and not play other tournaments in order to try and qualify. No one's going to try to go out of their way to skip stuff. So in my opinion, that's kind of the point, is that it just doesn't make sense. Like even Ali Reza, for example, like he's also, I think, said effectively the same thing, which is that once you play the candidates, like you realize just a lot of it comes down to these random factors, and when that's the case, like you're not going to go out of your way to try and hope that you can win the candidates. You'll play the tournaments, maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't, but you're not going to skip an event like freestyle where there's huge money at stake. And also, I mean, I'm going to be honest again, the situation has improved. There's a lot more money in chess now than there was even a few years ago. In no small part, obviously, to a lot of what I've done and Levy has done as well. But the fact is, top chess players are still struggling. They're still, finances are definitely at the top of their mind, and on, and as an agenda sort of thing. So, people are not going to go out of their way to change things.
If we look at this game for 1 second, are they just repeating?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there... Hammer, can you go back a couple of moves? Did they repeat?
It seems like they're repeating, and also Dominguez managed to get the queen trade, so that game is
Just so good,
is
so good from Lenier, so good after yesterday to see this. I mean, just so good. Like, it's like what's the saying? Form is temporary, class is permanent. I mean, so many people I've seen, they like to, say all these stupid things about Dominguez or Wesley. Like these guys, they just draw every game, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're still showing such great form. And these guys are really, really good players. Like, it's not by accident they've gotten to like 2750. So yeah. Also, I want to give you guys another example back to the Kansas thing very briefly. Look at Vinny K. From Germany. You have Vincent Keimer, who won the event in Wiesenhaus. And I'm going to tell you this: he got $200,000 for winning that tournament. If he doesn't even sniff the Canada's tournament, he's still going to feel like he had a really successful year in spite of that, because he won the freestyle event in Germany. So that's kind of the thing, is that people will play the tournaments, and if they make it, they make it. But no one's gonna be like, oh my god, I have to skip this, this, and this to try and qualify for the candidates at all costs. Yeah, it's what it is, but it's kind of shocking to see people who don't really understand what the realities are.
Do you think that prize,
Hammer, let's just
Vincent?
pull up an ongoing game, either Alice
Sure.
or Irina Crush, maybe at the end of that Blitz game, if you...
Sure. Yeah, we can pull up a game.
It's
Yeah,
at the
there's a
top.
game.
It's at the very top, I think.
Oh yeah,
Um,
another El Clasico, the El Clasico of American women's chess.
yes.
Yeah.
So, Hammer, you were saying?
I don't recall.
But I mean, Fabiano, of course, is in the dream situation. Like he's in like the dream situation where he can skip everything and just play freestyle and just do what he wants. So I mean, Fabiano's, I mean, he's got, the world the world is his oyster, or whatever the saying. I forget what the saying is. But yeah, in general, like a lot of people, they really take things out of context, and they misunderstand what's being said. But the fact is, chess players, They are simply trying to make a living. And you can talk about legacy or talk about this, that, or the other thing. But the fact is, you got to eat. You got to make a living. And in chess, nothing is guaranteed. You look at Richard Rapport, for example. He was 2760 in 2022 or something. Top 10 in the world. You figure he's got a long career ahead of him. Going to get all the invites. We're now, what, 3 years later? And he's like barely 2700. No invites, no income. I mean, like, people don't want to live in reality, but the reality is that chess is a very tough way to make a living, and it's very difficult, and nothing is guaranteed. So of course people are going to care much more about money than anything else.
Yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. Do you think Vincent Kamer winning this first freestyle tournament of the year, do you think he made more money on that tournament than every prize he's ever won before that?
That's
He's
a
a
very good
quite
question.
he's a quite a young guy.
You're probably, I mean, by prizes, yes. By sponsorship, he probably, it's probably totals more than that. But yes, but if you were to ask me, I guess a better question is this: if we look at Vincent Keimer in the next 5 years, assuming he doesn't like make the world championship, will there be another tournament where he makes that kind of prize money outside of freestyle? And I would take the under on that. I would bet the odds of him actually making $200,000 as a prize in any other tournament. He will not do it in the next 5 years. He just won't do it. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very happy for him. Like it's tremendous to see him succeeding and having that result. And I just think, people really like to pretend that the realities are different than they are. They, you want to talk about all these things, but the fact is, I mean, you have to be smart about your decisions. And as someone who's played chess for so many years now and seen so many promising people make it, so many people not make it, like it's just everybody who's not in that situation wants to believe that the world isn't the way that it is.
Freestyle is actually your next tournament in Paris. Are you looking forward to that one?
I mean, I'm sort of looking forward to it, but more than that, I'm actually looking at going on vacation after that. I'll be going to Japan after the Paris event, so maybe I can go do a live stream like Mizkif or Connor or some of those guys, perhaps, who knows. But I'm actually already at this point, my mind's on Japan, not on not on chess. So really looking forward to really looking forward to that.
Meanwhile, it looks like
Oh,
Irina
by the way, one
Crush.
thing,
Mhm.
while the game's ending, I want to add, because I saw a question in chat. Someone said Fabi and I were smiling. We were smiling because at the end of the game, we can't make draws by or you can't offer a draw. And I thought at first it was repetition, but because I took the pawn on a6, it wasn't actually a threefold. So that's why we were smiling, because at first I was going to claim it, and then I realized the queen was on a6 versus a7, and we both kind of realized that at the same time. But anyway, back
So
to chess. Irina won, right?
yeah, there's like Irina won the Classico, and we're left with only one game ongoing at the moment. That's Alice Lee against Tatev. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can quickly share some thoughts about that position, and then,
I mean,
unless there's anything you'd like to discuss, then we will let you go.
I mean, very typical King's Indian. Obviously White's winning if White is Stockfish. Practically, I mean, this game is a long way to go. I think this should be very interesting because Tatev has a big time advantage here. And her moves are easier. She's obviously going to just start pushing the P with G5, F5 at some point on the King's side, whereas White has to go knight E1, knight D3, B4, F3. So the middle game is going to get very complex, and I think it's going to be a good example where we'll see whether Owsley is able to sort of show great technique under pressure on the clock. I think it's going to be very, very, very spicy. I don't think this game is going to be a draw. I think this game will be. Oh,
What?
oh, that's a beauty! Wow, I didn't even see that. Oh, the kids, and their stupid tactics. Knight G5. That is a beautiful move. Although, what's the idea? If Black was Knight
I mean,
C7
I
here,
assume you go knight e6 and sacrifice the pawn.
but what if Black plays Knight C7 just to stop the whole idea? Like Knight C7 here?
b4 maybe.
You're gonna open up the B file and then go back to after at some point. Like B6, yeah. Takes BC5.
I mean, you're gaining a lot of tempos compared to the normal
Mm-hmm.
situation
Yeah.
in this opening.
Yeah. I mean, this is
I
gonna
was
be a
just
great
about to
position.
say I really like black in these kind of positions because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's so difficult for white to break through this
Mm-hmm.
pawn and knight barrier on the queen side.
Hmm.
and then black can try to build up on the
Yeah,
opposite flank. But knight g5 is wow. I've
that's a nice move. Yeah, nice move. Also, I want to point out something else because someone mentioned something in chat. Just back to main point. Someone said or saying something about I don't think freestyle is going to be big. What changed my mind? Like there's nothing that's changed in my mind about freestyle. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it has potential. But the fact is, a tournament that's there. Like if there's a tournament that's there with the big prizes, I'd have to be a moron to not plan the event. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think it's going to be some huge success 5 years down the road. But I'm going to play the event that exists. Like it's not about like changing my mind. It's the fact that if there are tournaments there where you have a $200,000 prize fund, I'd have to be an idiot not to play for anyone who's wondering. Because I think I saw that in chat just a second ago. But people apparently these days have no ability to use their brains and think logically about anything. So yeah, it's just bizarre. So back
So,
to chess,
Hikaru,
yes.
I'm all out of questions. Hammer, I don't know if you have anything else.
I feel like I had my quota and then
Yeah,
some.
you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure if I'm going to do a recap today. I mean, I might just do one big recap tomorrow. I know when Levy's played tournaments and he's had some kind of like very boring short draw, he usually just jams it together and does a recap of 2 games. So I'm not actually sure if I'm going to do a recap today. Not 100% sure, but it is a short game, and I mean, I basically I had two choices. Either I basically I either decide to hang with you guys, or I go try to do some trading around the Federal Reserve stuff. So I thought I would hang with you. So I don't mind hanging around for another like five
Okay.
or 10 minutes with you
So
guys.
let's look at this some more. Apart from knight c7, what can Tatev do here?
Well, she can allow the pawn sacrifice to go through, right?
Mhm.
Because
Hmm.
it's not entirely obvious that this pawn sack is so incredible. Is it? Maybe it is.
I mean, it is for a computer. Is it for a human? I mean, probably it is if Alice understands the concept of playing for f4. If she understands the concept of the quick attack with f4 to open up the file, it's probably very good for white. But I mean, even this is going to require very, very precise play. And I'm not sure that in human practice this is so clear. In a computer game, of course, white's just rolling, but it'd be interesting.
If you're black here, is your first instinct to play this position as black or avoid it?
I mean, I guess here's what I would say. If this were a classical game, I would be unhappy to have this position as black. If this were rapid or blitz, I think I'd love to have this position.
Hmm. What
That's what I would say.
do you have any thoughts on the young crop of women players in the US? Alice Lee, Karisayed.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really great that Dr. Jeannie Sinkfield came up with this $100,000 prize. I think for the first 5 American women who become the overall Grandmaster title. I think that definitely is going to spur on some of these kids to try and make a run at it. I mean, obviously, Carissa is by far and away the best of the U.S. women players at the moment. Irina was for a long time. So I think Carissa is definitely, in my opinion, the best by a big margin at the moment. I think that when I look at Alice, very, very talented, but it feels like she's lost a step in the last year or so. It felt like, I mean, there's maybe it's, I get all my years blended together, but I feel like 1 or 2 years ago, she was, I think she lost to Magnus. She might have even drawn me. I mean, she had some really, really good games against top players, and it feels like in the last year or two, she's kind of regressed a little bit. And I haven't really seen that same spark in her games. But she's the other one who, of course, has the best shot at getting to Grandmaster. Both of them have really high potential, but I think Chris at the moment is probably the stronger player. Although, as I said, I feel like her openings here haven't been great. I don't know, maybe A Wonder hasn't been giving her the great prep the way he was during the U.S. Women's Championship. But it just feels like I would say overall Chris is best. Alice has a chance, and it's good when I look at someone like Carissa. That she is, I think, taking the last year off school or doing something like that to try and play chess professionally because, chess is there's a very finite window for your career. And this is, again, not to hash the candidate's point again, but, you really never know how long your chess career is going to be. It's very volatile. It's very unstable. You can have one bad year, career can be over. So when you're young, you have to take these chances. And I think for Carissa, if it doesn't work out, she can always like go and finish her studies, in a couple of years. But she has the opportunity, the chance to become a grandmaster and maybe climb in the world rankings perhaps. And I think think that it's definitely a good thing. I would hope that Alice pursues the same course, but we'll have to wait and see. She is a little bit younger.
How do you see the future of chess in the US in general? What about young male talents? How do you see the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very very murky. I mean, we don't need more nonsense, so I won't talk about certain player. But I think the fact is, at the moment it's very difficult because as far as U.S. chess goes, it's really, I mean, it basically for all of us, everything has been held up by what Rex has done, Rex and Genie, the amount of money they've given to chess in America. I mean, they've probably given more chess to, or they've probably given more money to chess in America than probably in the entire history of the game, frankly. So without what they've done, none of this would be possible. I've been very fortunate. I've played in St. Louis on and off since 2009 when they first held the U.S. Championship. So it's amazing to see what they've done. On the other hand, Rex is not getting any younger. Who knows what the future is going to look like in 5, 10 years from now? But I'm hopeful that there will continue to be financial resources towards the club and towards the events that they're hosting. I think when I look now, like regardless of Hans and all his nonsense, the fact is the U.S. is very far behind. Several countries, in particular, I would say India, obviously, and India and Uzbekistan, very specifically. They have some very, very strong talents. You look at countries like Iran or Turkey, where you also have a couple of kids who are really, really strong, and are frankly like very annoying for me to play against. Whenever I play like the Turkish kids in the bullet brawl, there's like half my age and they're beating me. It's very frustrating, but that's how it goes. And so I think you have a lot of you have a lot of talented kids from these countries, and they're far ahead of the U.S. I think I don't really know if there's anything that can be done about it other than perhaps having some kind of system where there is more money for the rising players. I think you might still have things like the Sanford Fellowship, but I think that's pretty much it as it goes for money for these players. So it's very tough. I think unless there's some kind of systemic change, the U.S. is going to probably lag far behind. And no, just for anybody who asks the question, Hans is not like the next greatest thing. So yeah, I mean,
So
I'm not optimistic. I think I think if you ask me, I think what's going. I mean, this is another hot take, but I think what's going on with like say the club. I think Carissa is moving to St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken. Seeing them trying to help the women's chess, I think is actually a much better idea in my opinion. I think there's much more potential there at the moment for the U.S. to have players like Carissa or Alice who can potentially become world champions. Than Mr. Loudmouth. Although I do think, players like Mishra as well, like he's not getting the he does not have the opportunities. He's a very, very strong player, and he doesn't have opportunities either. So it's not some Han specific thing. Like the juniors, it's very tough as an American junior to have a shot. And of course, partially that's the fault of like Fabiano, myself, Lenier, and Wesley just being so good. But I think that, the juniors, unless something changes, it's very hard for me to see a world where, at least on the male side, it's going to change much. I mean, there are other countries that are just much better than us.
I much better. I find surprising that you would say that because, like you said, Mishra, he was the youngest to get the Grandmaster title ever in all of the world.
Hmm.
And you have this very talented, what's his name?
Oh,
Woodward.
Andy Woodward. Yeah, but I mean, but these guys have the same.
But
Again, no,
they
nobody
are
like.
at the level of the Turkish kids, right?
Yeah, but
And they're
I mean,
at the level of the
I'll talk
Indian
about
kids.
for like the 50th time today. I'll talk about the elephant in the room. The fact of the matter is that all these players in these other countries, they have financial support. And also, I would say you have to remember that when you compare the United States of America to a lot of other countries, the cost of living, the standard of living, it's very, very different. I think if you look at India, for example, if you go travel abroad to some tournament in Spain and you win a tournament, you make $2,000. That is fantastic because the cost of living and the prices of everything are much lower in India than they are in the U.S. If you go from the U.S. to Spain, and I did this many times as a kid, like you have an airfare for like your mom or dad, you have airfare for yourself. I mean, I know the parents are paying, but that's two airfares. Then usually the hotel maybe will be covered, but two airfares and food, you're probably already looking at $2,000 right there. And that he eats it up even if you have a great result. So the financial constraints are a real thing, whether that's Andy Woodward, whether that's Abumanu Mishra. The financial end of it is very, very rough, and parents are basically forced in a situation where they have to basically spend their own money to send their kids or go with them to try and compete, and it's very, very tough. It's very, very tough, and I think unless there are private sponsors, like it's only going to get worse
Are you
because
saying
it's
the
just not,
Indians don't have this problem? Because a lot of the
well,
Indians
I mean,
are traveling to Europe as well.
but I mean the cost of everything is lower. So if you have a good like you're not gonna like I'm just gonna say this like if you're traveling to Europe, let's just say you travel. I'm just gonna say 8 times a year. Okay, like maybe this is too high, but let's just use like 8 times a year. And let's just say you're a kid and you go with your parent. You're easily spending something like let's just say $2,000 to $3,000. Let's just say $3,000 between airfare, food, and everything, all the expenses, times eight. That's $24,000. A salary in the US is like I don't know what the average salary is, but I feel like if you have a good job, not a liberal, coastal job, you probably make like 75, $80,000 a year. That's probably a good job. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm out of date with my facts. But the fact of the matter is, that's a good job. You're gonna have like if you have one parent who's working full time, like that's gonna be a third already of your money towards traveling. Like it's very, very. I mean, people don't like it when I talk about these things because everybody wants to pretend that we live in some perfect world and these things don't exist. But like that's a third. That's a third of the salary of one parent. Like it's not a joke at all. It's not a joke. And from India, I don't know exactly how it works, but I know the money's going to go a lot further.
I don't understand how you can say that so definitively. I definitely agree with you that
Hmm.
chess is a very expensive hobby.
Hmm.
Because the chess tournaments are so long and you often travel so that you have to have accommodations for the duration of the tournament. But I don't see how the money would be better for the Indian kids when sure, the Indian parents maybe have fewer expenses when at home in India, but the
Hmm.
travel costs are the same, and the salaries in India are considerably lower than that of the US. To
I
me, it
I thought
seems
it was
like,
cheaper, but maybe I thought it was cheaper to get to Europe from India, and usually, but okay. I mean, your point is taken. Like, I'm not going to try and argue over that, but at least from what I've heard, I'm under the impression that when players do well, like it's much more meaningful. But I mean, again, I don't know specifics. Like, you could be right on this. You
well,
could be
Probably
right.
Indian players just have a lot more support, right? A lot more sponsorship. I think it's very rare to see these young Indian players at tournament and not to see them wear at least a couple of sponsor badges or sponsor logos.
Yeah, I mean, again, like that's just my view of it. But I mean, I will also, I mean, I can also just speak. Again, everybody assumes that I make stuff up, and I'm just like don't know what I'm talking about. But if I look at the case of Andy Woodward, for example, I was basically paying for lessons. I wasn't directly involved, but I was basically sponsoring him in a sense where I was paying $2,000 a month so he could get lessons with strong grandmasters. And if you look at that over the course of a year, like that's not a joke. That right there, just 2 grand a month is like that's $24,000. Then you add in like travel and all these other things. Like if you have no support, like it's immensely taxing. It's very difficult. As an American to try and make it. I know they're looking for sponsors now. And I mean, I feel like everybody's looking for sponsors, Mishra as well. Like it's just the unfortunate reality is it's a very tough landscape. It's a very, very tough landscape in the US.
well,
And
I
that's
think
just how
it's
it
true
goes.
for most countries. I don't think the US is that much different to Norway, also one of the richest country in the world. But in Norway, we do not have the
Hmm.
generosity, like you've said, of
Hmm.
Rex and Jeannie Sinkfield. And the same problems you're describing, I think, is the same problem that a lot of people are experiencing because, back to that part of the story, chess is a very expensive hobby. The advantage of France, Germany, Norway, Spain is that
Hmm. You're
people
there.
there, they play tournaments within their own country,
Hmm.
which to some degree, I'm not saying hotels in Norway is cheap, but you can choose to play weekend
Hmm.
tournaments
Hmm.
and stuff like that if money is a massive issue.
Hmm.
So I guess what I'm trying to get to is,
Why is it
wouldn't
different?
a lot of the problems here be better addressed rather than talking about the lack of money? Shouldn't the discussion rather be about how do we make chess less expensive? because right now the lack of money, I think, is just the symptom of a larger issue, which is that
Hmm.
chess is too expensive. It
Hmm.
shouldn't be this expensive. There
Hmm.
shouldn't be a situation where you have to travel to Europe to find good tournaments when you're from India or whether you're from the US.
Hmm.
And I would like to, because I've played a couple of tournaments in the US, and the truth of it is that the US tournaments have a very different
It's capitalism, baby.
culture.
Capitalism. No, I mean,
Yeah.
but actually, I was thinking about that too. But that's also the other reason people, I mean, like in the US, I think it might be more expensive well, it's probably not more expensive because you don't have the airfare, but like you're paying your own hotel, actually. I assume you know this. Like if you're an aspiring junior player, you're paying your own hotel, and then all the food is out of pocket too. So like you have like 5 or 6 nights of hotel, which also adds up very quickly. I think, there's also the other unpleasant reality, I think, about the whole conversation, which is that the fact of the matter is we're I know you guys aren't, but like we're America, and I think there's also this American privilege, or like, it's America. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world. Everything's supposed to be great. How can it be that there's not money for chess? And so it is possible that you're right on from that standpoint. It's also partially like an American thing, that it's like, this is America. We're the best. Like it's just not okay. But still, I mean, I think, the fact is, you're right though, in Europe, and someone said this, like you can get a flight on Ryanair or any of the cheap airlines for like 50 euros to go and play somewhere for a week, and it's a lot cheaper. So yeah, I don't know if there's a solution necessarily, but I think that it's something that, with the US, definitely. I think the parents, unless you happen to be from a very rich family, the parents fill the squeeze. They fill the squeeze a lot, in terms of having to spend a lot of money for their kids to go and travel and do other things. And yeah, chess is just very expensive no matter how you slice it. And I don't know if there's a way to make it cheaper. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
I will say this, that both Magnus and I, and also the youngster we have coming up in Norway, who is Axel Bukvale,
Hmm.
we are all from well-off families, and there is a concern that those people are the only ones to kind of excel because they have the means to travel the
Hmm.
tournaments more so than someone like someone from, I'm going to use Norway since that's what I know, Elham
Yes, of
Ahmad.
course.
He is incredibly talented,
Hmm.
but he doesn't come from means
Yeah.
in that same way,
Hmm.
and so then it becomes tricky to maximize his talent
Right.
compared to someone
Hmm.
who can
Yeah.
just finance the journey
Yeah.
of chess excellence themselves.
No,
Life
no, I
is
mean, you're
unfair.
absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, life is unfair. Yeah. I mean, it's no, I mean, it's you're right that it's a problem everywhere, certainly. I mean, I think part of it might just be that, again, in America, like we're supposed to be the best. It's just so unconscionable that something can be wrong because it's America. So you might be right, actually, about part of it. But I do think ultimately, it's as far as the US goes, though, I think, with a lot of parents and the kids who are playing, like they feel the pressure. They feel a lot of pressure. And it's very tough to try and make a career out of chess. It really is. And so that's also why, like, in general, I'm not optimistic about the future, at least on the men's side. I think, like, that's also the other thing I'd say on the women's side. The investment, I think, can be a lot less with much higher return than it's going to be on the men's side. So that's why I actually like, as far as St. Louis, because I think what they're doing is great with like Carissa and maybe Alice down the road. Who knows? I think that there's much more potential there than on the men's side, which maybe it's disappointing to hear that, but that's my view.
I've also been following, there's this girl who posts these updates on Twitter, and she's
Hmm.
having some really, really good results as well.
You're
But
talking about
I
Rose,
forget.
right?
Rose, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I basically, I think there's more potential there on the girls' side than the men's side at the moment. I'm
It,
not saying that it's going to be like that forever, but I think at the moment, when I look at the current crop, I feel like there's more potential.
is there less competition also on the girls' side?
Well, I mean, I guess you could say that, yes, on the girls' side there aren't I mean, you don't have players who are like rock solid top 10 players. I mean, that's the thing. You look at us, like, I mean, myself, Wesley, Fabiano, like, I mean, all of us have been perennial top 10 players for the last decade or so. And it is true that currently we don't have that on the women's side. Irina was, I mean, at some point, I think she's over 2,500, but never super close like the world championship level.
Well, I mean,
But
like
yeah.
more internationally.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, that's going to lead to a different topic and a can of worms. But I think, at the end of the day, there's more potential there. And for the people who want to be apologists for certain someone, the fact is, you look at India, you have kids who are 3, 4 years younger than Hans, who are already world champion level, 50 plus points higher rated. So I'm sorry, but the reality is that he's not at that level. So anyway.
Do do you guys have anything you want to add on this
Yeah.
conversation?
I mean,
Otherwise,
I think I'm gonna bounce in a second. I've been here for a long time, and
yeah,
just seeing
we're
some of the
gonna
comments, like whatever.
quickly gonna bring up just one last thing to bring us back to the tournament before we let you go.
Hmm.
St. Louis published a graphic chances to win the tournament in the open section, which we're gonna pull up on the screen. So it
Sure.
has Caruana at 29.2%, you at
Hmm.
24.8, then Wesley 14, Aronian 14, Dominguez 9, and so on and so forth. Do you
This is
feel?
before the event, right?
I think.
Or currently?
Oh, it's actually pre-tournament.
Yeah,
I
I mean
thought it.
that has to be pre-tournament because I mean it should
Um,
be something like Fabi's like 40%, I'm like 38% or something. I mean like real because actually the fact is whoever is there is gonna have to beat both of us. Because if I beat Fabiano, I'm at the top, and then Fabi drops, and if Fabi beats me, then I have to play the person. So like, I mean, but so you're asking before the event, Fabiano at 29 and me at 24.
yeah.
That is peculiar. That seems wrong. That seems wrong, actually. I don't know how you can have those odds when I'm high rated.
I just saw the percentages and didn't see the pre-tournament part, and I thought it was after today's game.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize everyone was still in the pie. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no.
curious.
I mean that's a little bit surprising on the one hand. But I mean, like it's just surprising that I mean, who knows when they did this, but that seems a little bit dubious to me.
Well,
Also
Hikaru,
it seems very dubious because how is Wesley at third? Levon won this event last year. How is Wesley higher than? I mean, Levon should be third based off of last year alone. That's
it
also kind of
says
weird.
the source is 15,000 tournament simulations, which I wonder how they did that. But anyway,
Hmm.
Hikaru, thank you so much
Yeah.
for all your time. I feel we had some very interesting insights
Hmm.
and discussions. And best of luck for the second game tomorrow.
Thank you guys, man. Yeah, I may or may not do a recap. I don't know, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye.
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 And Hammer, let's just see what happened here after knight g5, catch up with the live position, and then we are gonna go on a break.
Yeah, so Tatev obviously didn't want to take the knight because then she gets hit by the bishop attacking both the queen and the knight on the edge. Her choice was a bit peculiar to me because she goes with the queen one step back. Now she's threatening to make the capture. Alice, obviously, her plan is to sacrifice this pawn, so she goes through with it. But Tatev now ends up moving that queen twice over a 3 move period, where it feels like she probably could have gotten away with just moving it once. There was some question about what useful things she could do in the meantime, though. And this is the current situation. Engines really like Alice's pawn sacrifice. She has gained access to the d5 square. She can put her knight there. And also, since the d5 pawn is missing, she can have some influence down the center of the board. Lots to play for, of course, still, but very, very interesting concept with the pawn sack.
We'll come back with this game after the break since it's the only game currently running. If you're curious, when will the playoffs start? Will we cover them? Yes, we will, and they will start in half an hour. So I guess we'll be back in around 10 minutes. We'll then cover this game for 20 minutes or so before we jump back to the rapid games and see what is going on. So do stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back, everyone. If you're just tuning in now, unfortunately, you have already missed both Hikaru's game and a lengthy, interesting interview slash discussion about the state of chess in the US, the expensiveness, that's the cost of chess, and many, many more topics. The game was a quick draw. So tomorrow Hikaru will be playing black against Fabi. In terms of the rapid games, Linnea Dominguez won a nice game against Sam Sevian. Aronian and Wesley made a draw. So those games will continue 15 minutes from now, which means that right now the only game going is Alice Lee against Tatev Abrahamian in the final of the women's tournament. What do you call this, Hammer? The grand final.
No, because the grand final I call the next one.
But you called this something. I was trying to remember.
I mean,
It's just a
winners final. I
final.
really struggle
Winners
with the
final.
concept of a losers semifinal
I know.
because that just rubs something the wrong way. We tried in the Norwegian broadcast to call it the comeback end game, essentially the comeback round, which I think is a bit more nicer to the players than calling them losers at least.
I agree. So what has happened in this game? We haven't missed too much since we left, have we?
We've missed nothing.
Oh, nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Rook D1 had already been played.
But that is saying something about the time situation, because it's not that long ago that Tatev was up by I think it was like 30 minutes on the clock. But after this double exclam move from Alice, which really alters the situation on the board, this position here usually ends up being a very difficult maneuvering struggle. But by moving the knight up here, Alice is sacrificing a pawn to open up through the center. And instead of having then a grueling positional grind, she's going to have pretty obvious intentions with the knight into the center, pushing the pawn up along the side of the board. And any kind of black breakthrough is going to open up for this light squared bishop, which now doesn't have an obvious enemy in Black's camp.
I just remembered that Hikaru earlier had talked about playing with a quick f4. I guess that is no more on the agenda once the rook moved away from f1.
Yeah, I never really understood why Hikaru wanted this to begin with, because anytime you play f4, it also means that after takes, obviously it doesn't really work here, but as just a general concept, I find this f4 move difficult because it allows Black to get a potentially good square for the knight in the long term. Obviously, it would have been better when White prepared it properly, with really getting the rook in behind it and so on, building up the pressure before actually pushing forward. But yeah, I didn't really understand the benefit of it. And I rather see a future where this knight actually gets trapped. So I think quite an obvious move now for Black is to move the knight back, keep the pawn defended, the pawn that's being attacked by the queen and rook. White obviously is going to move the knight forward. Black is going to do something like b6. Oh, God. Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, b6 I thought was reasonable, but there's an amazing trick. Bishop takes on f6. And now after bishop takes back, bishop to g4, attacks the queen. And the queen only has two squares it can go to. It can either take the bishop or move back. But in both of those cases, the knight comes in, check on the king and forking the queen.
Bishop g4 is a stunning move, but not easy to spot this from a distance. I think not easy to spot this full stop, even in the present.
Yeah. Well, but then that's very good for Alice, right? Because it means it's going to be difficult for Tatev to see as well. And even if Alice just continues business as usual, if Tatev suddenly discovers this idea, then we get back to my primary idea, which is just push this knight out of the way. And when the knight moves, we can come in for a different fork. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that this guy is an absolute monster, creating big issues for Tatev in the next couple of moves.
And so I was wondering if instead of b6, if I go rook c8, but then do you have the same bishop f6, yeah?
Yeah. So now that we know about this trick, I guess maybe you have to go move the king. And then pawn pushes forward, and then your rook c8 is probably the best move, because you need to take control of the c7 square before your knight gets kicked back. And here pawn rook b1 I think is a good move, just to prevent the knight from getting back into the game, because then you can open up an attack on the queen side. And this is it's not indefensible for Abrahamian, but it's very unpleasant. And I want to give a big kudos to Alice for that idea with the pawn sacrifice, because it really changed the urgency in the position, making her own the white's position a lot clearer in what you want to do, and also making a lot of threats on black in the very immediate future.
Yeah, very difficult, tricky spot already for Tatev here, who has been thinking for, yeah, quite a long time.
I would say over 15 minutes.
Yeah, that is fair, because, I mean, we went on break, I think over 20, because I think we went on break like 20 minutes ago.
Well, that's saying something about how big her time advantage was to begin with, right? Because being faced with this knight g5 move, she already spent 20 minutes to figure out her response there, right? And then to have to invest another 20 minutes now, that's unfortunate, especially since what has happened since her previous 20-minute thing was the most obvious thing in the world, right?
Yeah, so she will have to come up with something soon, but the position is very difficult. For anyone wondering, when do the loser bracket games start? Have they started? If they had started, we would go there. They will start in eight minutes from now at half past, and we will, of course, take a look at that. Do you think Sam might mount a comeback? Sam Sevian, that is.
I mean, he could. There's no doubt that he has the ability to do it, but I don't know. Dominguez is a difficult guy to break down, even in rapid. So he's going to give it his best shot. I think we're guaranteed that that game is going to be pretty exciting, simply because of the necessity one of the players have to win. Means that they can't really try to play it safe. He's going to have to go for broke, Sevian. And yeah, I guess that's the game we're gonna be following when it starts in 7 minutes.
Yeah, and I just realized that out of the 4 rapid games, 3 ended decisively. So we already talked about Dominguez's win against Sevian. Levon against Wesley So was a draw. That was the only draw because in the women's losers bracket, Irina Krush beat Anna Zatonsky in what Hikaru dubbed
Comeback section.
in the comeback section. I've never called it the loser, but I had chess.com open to remind myself, and I just read it off without thinking. So Irina won the El Clasico of US women's chess against Anna Zatonsky, and Carissa Yip, maybe we can show that one more time, had a very bad blunder moment against Nazi Paikidze and lost game one in rather brutal fashion with the white pieces.
Yeah, a replay of Carissa's nightmares to come, at least for the next couple of nights. Knight takes d5. She thought she was being clever. If the knight is captured, the black knight will be lost afterwards. She also thought she had things under control. If the queen comes to give a check, attacking both the knight and the king, she would have been able to move back. What she did not account for, though, was queen to c6, after which, if the knight moves, the queen will be able to capture the rook in the corner. And that's how she lost with the white pieces in game one. It doesn't fill you with confidence for the next one.
In fact, after queen c6, we saw knight ec3, and after knight b6, we stopped here, but she just resigned. This is move 16. Doesn't happen every day, losing, especially for a player of her caliber, losing a game with the white pieces in just 16 moves. So we'll have to see. I mean, all of these players had almost an hour in between the two. I think they all had an hour, some even more. So yeah, we'll have to see if they can use that break to mentally reset. I think for Carissa, it's all about just try and forget about this. It's always very unpleasant to lose a game in this fashion with a one move blunder straight out of the opening. But yeah, she'll have to strike back with the black pieces or she's out of the tournament. So 4 minutes to go. Have we had a move from Tatev? No, Tatev's still thinking.
She's not providing us with the entertainment right now.
No.
But rather she's filling Alice with confidence, I would say.
Okay, let's give chat 4 minutes to ask us questions. 4 minutes. Chat, this is your chance. Anything, or almost anything you've ever wanted to ask Hikaru or myself, this is your chance.
It's very important specifying almost.
Almost. Is anyone even in chat? Hello?
Yeah. There they go.
I mean, 5,700 viewers. Surely someone's gonna come up with something.
That's what happens when you, the streamer, just rely on chat for your content. Don't be a lazy streamer. Provide your own content.
Jaren wants to know if I've read anything from what's behind me. Doubtful, because it's not actually my library. You know what?
Wait,
I have to admit.
You don't read books when they're not in your room? Is that like a rule?
No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I have a bookshelf in my room, and there I think I've read all the books that are on it. But since none of my books are here, that it could actually be that I haven't read any of them. It's an interesting topic because I would like to do more reading than I am doing. I'm currently doing maybe 2-3 books a year, which is very sad. How many do you read?
I stopped reading about when I turned 16.
Why?
I don't know.
What is my most favorite event?
It maybe lost some of its novelty. I don't know. I was reading a lot of books in elementary school and middle school, and then kind of yeah. But back then, you know, I was one of the cool kids, right? Because I was one of the first kids who could read and stuff like that.
either of you going to the US this year? I will actually be in New York for the freestyle event in July, most likely. So that's exciting. I've only ever been to New York once and only for a couple of days, and the weather was dreadful. So New York in summer should be interesting. And I'm thinking, Hammer, to make a trip out of it. Where do you recommend I go? In the US, or should I leave the country ASAP and go elsewhere on that
I mean,
continent?
I personally wouldn't travel to the US these days. But if to talk about where I wanted to go some years ago, I really want to go to like some of the national parks.
Mhm.
I think Bryce Canyon looks incredible just in general, southern Utah. And also, I guess with the Yellowstone TV series, that has really, yeah, the Montana landscapes and stuff like that is also very cool. But I guess I don't really need to go to the US to experience that, right? Because that it feels kind of similar to Norway.
Those are some great suggestions. I feel like we've congrats on my marriage. Okay. You know more about my marital status than I do, apparently, but thanks anyway. Have the games, no, the games have not started yet. Someone was asking about
I
favorite.
have more recommendations though.
Oh, the games have started.
Okay, never mind then.
But I'm sure we'll find some time for your recommendations. I'm thinking of going to Central America, actually.
Right after the New York thing,
Yeah, either after or before.
I really liked Hawaii.
Oh, that's something I was considering as well, actually. That is something I was considering. Okay, the games have started, but only in the women's event, bizarrely enough.
It's a big moment now also in Alice's game because Alice is now threatening that very
Yeah.
sneaky, well-hidden bishop sacrifice to
Just
set
Mr.
up the
Subliminal
queen
had
fork.
asked about my favorite event to cover, and I started answering twice and never did. I think my favorite is Weikantsee, Tata Steel Chess. It's just such a big festival. It's like a big family, but freestyle is quick fasting, catching up. Hammer, what are you shaking your head at? Not a Weikantsee
I
fan?
know just liking the Vacancy tournament is wild to me.
Let's
Absolutely
go
wild.
to, let's start with Wesley and Levon. We see another Italian. Have we seen a single Rui Lopez in this tournament? Hammer,
I'm not
no.
sure, but they're playing these Italians every single game. A bit of a different flavor here from Levon, though, because he does put his knight out to the edge and push the pawn up afterwards. So he's going for that solid control of the center.
So, yeah, another Italian debate. Let's just quickly check. Savian against Linear. I have a bad feeling it might be another Italian again. You have it open there at the bottom.
You would be right.
I would be right.
Italians are all the rage, but it must be said that Sam, because he is in a must win situation, he's playing this with a lot more aggression
Mm-hmm.
than Levon and Wesley. Because here, by putting this bishop out early on, pointing it towards the black queen at a moment where the black bishop cannot move back and kind of protect the queen on this diagonal, what very, very often happens, almost exclusively from this variation, is that black feels forced to push their pawn forward to kick the bishop back and stop the bishop from pointing towards the black queen. But in doing so, you leave a lot of weaknesses and you leave a big question about where the black king is going to end up. So this can become really, really spicy. Not a great sign that Sevian is thinking, though.
I wonder if he's thinking because the top computer move is castling kingside. And I wonder, could he be thinking, okay, if I stay in the middle with the king, maybe I can go for an attack No, or is just
I think maybe if castles, black could have this knight to a5,
mhm.
after which the bishop is trapped. Well, basically, you can force that you'll be able to capture this bishop. Um, maybe he does end up castling though, and g5 happens, and so this is just a very spicy situation. Both players castling to the same side, yes, but one of the players have pushed their pawn forward in front of their own king, leaving some potential for attacks against said king. And we often see in these variations some kind of a pawn sacrifice through the middle, where you give up one of these pawns, but you do it to really just get your pieces going through the center very quickly.
Hammer. Jaren just brought up the camera of the Nazi against Carissa. Well, I think they're about to disappear, but maybe a quick look there since we just saw the girls on camera. Remember, Carissa Yip in a must-win situation with the black pieces, but very early doors here.
She's gone for the perch opening. I'm trying my best
It's,
Slovakian pronunciation.
I think it's Perts.
Perts.
Yeah.
Perts.
Are you even
Yeah.
sure about Slovakian?
Yeah, no, I mean Czech, I was going to say.
Okay.
But then I thought Czech goes Slovakia, and then I got confused. You should go and learn some TV from
From
our boss.
no, I
Because
actually
he's all about, I'm gonna say so many things wrong, but you're never gonna point it out, because no one is gonna notice I made a mistake unless you point it out. And that is a school of thought that I have become very fond of. And you really just don't go there, do you? You just, every mistake I make.
no, I with Perts, I genuinely wasn't sure where he was from, because he I just looked him up. So Virgia Perts was from Yugoslavia.
Oh, well, I knew it was some place who puts a lot of thingies on their letters.
Yeah, I mean, Perts was born in the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and he died in Ljubljana, so he died in Slovenia. I think he was, you were close. I think he was Slovenian, probably. Okay, or modern day Slovenia. Anyway, enough with the little history slash geography slash pronunciation lesson. Where have you, okay, we're still here. Wow, A6 gets a question mark.
That's very harsh.
Yeah.
I guess Nasi could push forward in the center, and she does. And then after pawn to b5, which is pretty much a given at this point, then you can just further push forward. Through the center looks a little bit better for white, but I played something similar to this against Jan Nepomniachtchi once. I had the white pieces, and he just absolutely destroyed me. And in typical Nepo fashion, he just didn't use any time whatsoever. And I felt like the biggest idiot. I tried to play this e5 move early on, and he just completely ignored it and then struck back at my center, and yeah, got a winning position. So what my point is, just because you have two nice pawns in the middle doesn't mean you're going to win the game. And Carissa has definitely achieved what she set out to, which is to create a fighting position with chances to win, having the black pieces.
So that leaves only one game we haven't seen at all. Let's have a quick look at Anna Zatonsky against Irina Krush, with Zatonsky in a must-win situation.
Hikaru referred to it as the El Clasico of the American women's chess, and there's a very real reason why he's saying that. Irina and Satonsky, they, I think they won the American Women's Championship like 15 years running, but they traded
Hmm.
which one of them won it, something like that.
I didn't realize it was that much, but they had a very, yeah, I mean,
I must be say I did just make up a number.
I was buying it. I was like, I was really impressed. I was like, wow, Hammer is really on top of his
No, but if you
stuff.
just say something confidently enough,
Yeah.
it usually works out. Okay, so Satonsky won in 2006, 2008, 2009, 2011, and then Irina won 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012, 2010, 2007. So in total, the two of them has won. Well, actually, Irina also won in '98, which,
Wow,
but
that
that
was a
was not
big
part
jump.
of their domination. So they won between the two of them from 2006 to 2015. So it was only 10 years, but in those 10 years, Anna Satonsky won 4 and Irina won 6.
That is a pretty long domination between the two of them. So no wonder this is El Clasico. And Irina playing an interesting setup here.
Yeah, it's a bit passive, I would say.
Mhm.
Satonsky definitely getting an unbalanced, interesting position right out of the gate, where her opponent is gonna have to trust her brains, not her preparation. But yeah, chances for both sides, obviously, in this very interesting opening.
We'll come back to that one. Let's go back to Sam Sivian against Linier, where I see the engine bar is ever so slightly in Black's favor already after that G5 push you were talking about.
Yeah, pushing the pawns doesn't need to be a bad thing, especially if you can then get your pieces into the opponent's half. It does seem to me there's a pawn sacrifice now. Takes, takes, takes. This is definitely one pawn less for black than for
Mhm.
white,
Good maths there.
but the queen comes in, attacks the knight. If the knight moves back, the queen takes the pawn, exploiting the fact that black's bishop is pointing on white's king, preventing the pawn from being allowed to capture the queen. And if instead the other knight comes in to protect its buddy, pawn to g4, attacking the knight, but the knight has to stay put because of the attack on the other knight, and black wins the game.
Very nice tactics possible here in this game.
Oh God,
Tricky
Dominguez is at 25 minutes, Fiona.
is unbelievable.
For a second game running, Sevian is getting destroyed just in the prep.
Yeah.
In the French opening we had in the first game between these two, Sevian was down, I think, 15 minutes out of the opening. And now Dominguez, he's getting everything we talked about.
Hammer, there's a cool bit of trivia. I'm glad that Shydog only addressed his question to you. So the question goes, there are 4 US women's champions who share a first name with another US women's champion. So is he saying there are 5 who share a first name? Yeah.
I don't think that's the logic you can deduct from that. But I find it interesting he's asking this after I very obviously opened up the US Women's Championship wiki page.
So you know the answer.
Well,
Or
I know the answer if I hadn't switched back to the Kick browser. I'm guessing Irina is there.
oh, maybe he means there are 4 pairs. There are 2
Well,
chance.
or there can be 3 of one and 2 of
No, I
another.
think he's saying 2 pairs.
2 pairs.
Two
Okay.
pairs.
Um.
Surely there was another Anna at some point, right? No? Who was there?
I gotta admit, women's chess players from the US post my pre my birth, not really a strong suit.
Yeah, I'm trying
Um,
to think. I think when I was, started following chess,
Lisa Lane, Lisa Lane. I
and
know
she
Lisa
shares a
Lane.
name with, I know you just know her name, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just if I can name anyone, that would be
Yeah.
sensational. They're all this century, millennia even, Shaydock. I don't know why
All
you
this
restricted
century.
yourself. Oh
What?
wow. And Sevian is sacrificing his knight, thinking that I'd rather have an unbalanced position than just be equal on material. And what's very interesting here is that the top engine choice, or one of, is just capturing this pawn anyway. But then white would be up a pawn and starting an attack. So I find this very unlikely that Dominguez would manage to figure out that he can allow this attack to happen with the white queen. Apparently, after knight g8, you're keeping your king safe and you're ready to trap the queen afterwards. But that seems difficult to find, to say the least. So I'm expecting Dominguez instead to just take this knight and then something like this. The pawns are going to rush forward, try and overpower the black king, who is not super well protected. And I at the very least, Sevian managed to get Dominguez out of his prep.
Which is something. The problem is if Dominguez finds the right continuation, Sam is gonna be in serious trouble. Hammer, we need to solve this trivia because the whole time you were talking, and this is such an exciting position, but I was like, who was there? If they're
Jennifer
both good.
Shahadi and Jennifer Yu.
Oh, very
So
good.
that's one.
Very good. I was thinking we had like, I don't know, the girls who are commentating now, Katarina Nemtsova, Sabina Freuser. I don't know, did they win it? Could there have been another? Whatever happened to Jenny for you, by the way? Where is she? Why is
I
she
don't
not
know.
here?
She was not mentioned by Hikaru when it came to the. Well, she did drop a lot of rating points. She played at the Botes camp thing,
Oh, that's true, yeah.
and she had dropped below 2300, but she was
Wow.
way stronger than that. She absolutely destroyed everyone else.
I remember, yeah, I
Well,
watched
she
it.
destroyed everyone other than Jules, actually, which was kind of funny.
That is funny. So Chidok is saying I also miscounted. What did you miscount? You're saying there was an Anna in 1987, but I'm gonna give you that one for free. So we're still looking for 1 pair, right? 1 pair missing?
Well, or we could talk about American travel destinations or the chess games currently going on. I do feel like this topic maybe isn't the best for because we're gonna have some sort of very long break
Downtime.
in the
Yeah.
near future.
Please, Chidok, just tell us. I'm too curious and I need to move on with my
Well,
life.
I
I
can
need to.
just click the other tab and find out. Anna, Anna Han. I have no idea who that
But
is.
he said that one would give us for free. Oh, so you answered it. It was just okay. So we can go back to the chess where Dominguez is still thinking. So what did you said you think he's just gonna take on f7, right?
Yeah.
Shall we go back to Wesley So and Aronian?
How about no?
Oh, okay. Show us why not.
Well, it's not that the position is boring. It's just that the players are pretty good, and there's imbalance, but there's not enough imbalance for me to believe that Levon and Wesley are going to do anything other than draw this position.
Is Anna okay? One last question, and then I'll shut up. I promise. Anna Aksharumova is she the wife of Boris Gulko? Because I was reading last summer actually very interesting book called The KGB Plays Chess by Boris Gulko together with some other
She
with
is,
some
yes.
historians. Yeah, she is. Okay. So that
They were
so we've
married before they moved to the US.
well, that's the whole premise of the book of the KGB plays chess. They were trying to leave the USSR, but the KGB was trying to stop them. And yeah, very. I don't think it's so easy to get the book, but very interesting read. Okay, so let's not stick around for here. I think this game will still be there when we come back. Is
Yeah,
Nazi taking a big advantage in her game?
yeah, I think that's the most interesting one right now. She didn't push the pawn through the center like a certain hammer would have, but she has sacrificed a pawn in the center of the board. Wow, this is interesting. So takes, takes. She's just going to be down a pawn here. But the chess engine says this is winning for white if you just push this one up and start the attack against the black king.
I
Is
mean,
that
chess is
obvious? That
wild.
is not
No,
obvious to
that
me.
is certainly not obvious. In fact, I think this is pretty wild.
But that knight to d5, just not being concerned about the pressure this bishop exerted in towards the center of the board, that was a pretty good decision right there.
Mm-hmm.
She does get the exclam for it, and Carissa ends up not daring to take that challenge. But at the same time, this is not the kind of position where things are going to calm down anytime soon.
I mean, now H4 anyway.
Well, I mean, if you're up and want to draw, I feel like
Yeah, you don't need to.
trades are very tempting. I don't want to allow the knight here. I take that back. Something like this, maybe. But even here now, there's an
Why
open
would
B
you do
file,
that,
right?
Hammer? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to trade, and I also want to centralize my queen, and I can get my pieces into the middle. Looks very easy to play. You have that long-term pressure against the e7 pawn. I think this is a very clever way to play, minimum risk, but
Mm-hmm.
the problem for Nazi is she has so many different things to choose between. So it's and yeah, she's just going for the throat. By the way, the player to stop the Satansky crush domination was
Mm-hmm.
in fact Nazi.
Ah,
Was she
interesting.
won it even twice, 2016 and 2018.
It's good to see her playing again. I feel for a while, I mean, she was doing some commentary at St. Louis for quite a long time, but I haven't seen her play in, I mean, I could be wrong or misremembering, but I feel like it's been a while and it's good to have her back. I like that she's playing H4. I also understand what you were saying about trading pieces when you only need a draw. But then again, we are often taught that, you know, if you need a draw and you try and play for a draw, that very often that cannot actually backfire. So,
I'm now
yeah.
continuing the research of US women's champions. Because
Hmm.
there's a girl here with a very Norwegian last name who won 3 years in a row in 1970s.
What did
Diane
you start,
Savageide.
Shydok?
Oh no, she won it 5 times.
What's her name?
Diane. Well, I don't know how to pronounce this in an American way, but basically they made an A into an A. So one of the
Mhm.
special Norwegian letters is an A. Savageide.
And now pronounce it in English.
Savor aid. I don't know.
Interesting. Never heard of her. Chidok says his trivia question has completely fallen apart because there is also a second Irina.
Of course there is.
Okay, let's move on from this topic, which has taken on a life of its own. And yeah, this one looking, wow, Carissa took on H6.
Yeah, she's about to get a visit from the queen, and it's not going to be fun.
I guess her idea is knight g4.
Ah, she's threatening the fork.
Yeah.
So Carissa is hoping that the queen is forced to go all the way back, and then maybe she can block the advance of the white pawn. However, Engine says Queen G5, amazing move, sacrificing a rook, but apparently this is winning. That is not immediately obvious to me, I must admit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Shower the board with gold coins.
Wow. Okay, that's a nice queen sack.
That is
Yeah.
stunning.
I don't see that one being played, if I'm honest, Fiona. But
It's
that is
unlikely,
some
but
very
would be
nice
nice.
attack. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's leave this game for now. Let's see if Nazi can find Queen G5. I think she'll go Queen D2, but we'll find out. Where do you want to go back to?
Let's check in with Mr. Sam Sevian, who needs desperately to win this game. And his plan for doing so is just pushing his pawns up through the center of the board. And G4, that was the top suggestion for the engine.
I mean, Linier had a bit of a nightmare yesterday. Not a nightmare, but not his best game against Hikaru. But today, wow, I mean, so far it's been just very, very impressive.
If he tries to play, if Sevian now plays f3, then the queen comes in, and there's the threat of the checkmate, with the king being very trapped in the corner of the board. But if you try to go 2 steps forward with that pawn, that's even worse still, because then the queen comes in and the same idea, checkmate on the king trapped in the corner of the board.
I I think unfortunately for Sam, this is most likely going to be the end of the road for him in this tournament. Remember, he doesn't just need to save this game, he needs to win it. So, but Dominguez will be a completely deserved winner of this match. Let's go back to, oh, we have Wesley against Levon on our second board. Let's take a quick look there. Looking quite peaceful still. I guess right now, odds are this will advance to Blitz.
Wesley has just captured one of Levon's pawns, but Levon can capture one of Wesley's pawns in return. So that doesn't really get us anywhere closer to a winner. In fact, it may get us closer to a draw, because there's a lot of pawns potentially getting moving off the board after this.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here, but I have a feeling this one could even liquidate quite quickly. Shall
Also,
we
actually, one of the most interesting things we have going on,
It's
Fiona,
the classical
the
final
classical game.
between yeah, let's go there.
And wow, so Tatev did spot this idea with bishop to takes f6 because she moved her knight back so that the rook helped defend against that trickery. The problem is Alice then just continues in the same fashion, pushing her pawn up. And now queen f7. Ooh, that's a brilliant move. Brilliant move by Tatev because she's preparing knight to e6. Somehow she managed over the course of not too many moves to get her knight into the center of the board. And
And
this is looking pretty solid for her. B5 played by Alice, and now yeah, because now if you go with the knight to c7, then takes, and you lose the pawn. And you also allow the white pieces to really make an impact through the center of the board.
so do you have to
But
go to b8?
yeah, computer actually hates that.
Yeah.
Why? Bishop g4? Oh, and then we cannot go with the knight here because then takes, and the fork. We've talked so many times about this white knight's ability to fork the queen
Yeah.
and something else. There's been one fork with the king and two forks with the rook. Wow, so this is interesting. Tatev actually has to realize that her best course of action is to give up the pawn, but that's a very difficult realization to make because not only does she lose the pawn, she also loses her path for the knight to get to the d4 square. The reason I was starting to think Tatev had solved her issues was because I saw this route for the knight, but here it just looks like that's not gonna happen.
Honestly, I think it's wild that after queen c8, which I think computer gave us top probably to prevent bishop g4, that after queen c8 the computer thinks black is almost okay.
Yeah, no, this is not okay. I've refused to believe black is okay here. That is an unacceptable assertion by the engine.
Take it up with our silicon friends.
And Tatev indeed has tried to keep on, hold on to the extra pawn she had. And now the
Which I think
only
is a
good
very
move,
human decision.
very human decision. And now the only good move is to move this bishop to g4, which is to prevent the knight from getting to the d4 square. And if black tries to attack the bishop, oh, wow. No, this is a very difficult move, Fiona. Because if black tries to attack the bishop, the only good move is moving back. But that means you can attack with another pawn, attack the bishop. And if the bishop moves, the first bishop gets trapped. And so what you're supposed to do here is you're supposed to sacrifice your bishop in trade for nothing. Like here, black is very literally just an extra knight. But then you look at the rook and the knight in the corner, and you're like, how extra is really that extra knight for black? Wow. Okay. This is if Alice plays bishop to g4, this is going to be a fantastic game from her. Both the
Not
pawn
just bishop
sacrifice.
g4. She'll have to take on g5, which if she
No,
can
but
play it,
if
she
she
does.
plays bishop g4, she will sacrifice. So
Yeah.
those two are the same, but
I think,
it's a moot point because she didn't find
yeah,
it.
she played knight e3. Yeah, I think it was tough to find, and she probably is also being tempted by playing a little bit quicker, seeing as Tatev hasn't got so much time left on the clock. We'll come back to this one for now. Let's go back to Sevian against Dominguez.
Nothing much happening here still. Dominguez struggling to get his rook in the corner into the game, but he has at least stopped White's plan of advancing the pawns through the center. Gets a question mark, but preserves the advantage. The queen now protects the pawn on b7, which means he can go bishop to e6 next, and then he can get his rook into the game. Feels good for Dominguez here.
So it looks like at the moment 2 players about to exit the event, Sam Sevian, and in the women's event, Carissa Yip, who is still, let's go back there actually for a second, who is
I think
on
it's too soon to say Carissa is leaving us. This remains a very double-edged position. She did manage to get Nazi to retreat her queen.
Yeah, maybe I was too optimistic about this. After c5, black will try and open the c file and get some counterplay on that file where the white king is currently placed. Can I... Okay, if I go g3, you go back to f6.
Wait, what? G3?
Sorry, f3, sorry.
F3.
Notation is
Yeah,
hard.
I'm with you. Knight back, yeah.
And now, you know me, Hammer.
Trades?
No,
You're not about the trades.
I was thinking g4.
That is the recommended move.
Let's freaking go! I didn't see the engine, guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't be celebrating. I didn't see the lines.
I guess then rook comes here is what you were making a rather good point about. But then can you start doing stuff like this? You see, this is how I sacrifice pieces, because I sacrifice pieces just for, you know, piece control instead of just the
I mean, even this looks good,
checkmate.
right? This looks...
I don't know. This looks scary.
Can I
to
take
me.
on g6 here?
Oh, you can. Not.
Cannot.
Oh.
Or,
Well,
draw is all I
undecided.
need, right?
Oh, the idea here is that when you sacrifice the rook, you just ignore it.
And if I go queen h2 instead of rook h8? Also this.
Well, I mean, then you're
Rook
giving
c2,
up
what am I
this.
saying? Sorry, c2
Oh yeah,
is
also
also
this one. Yeah.
everything is hanging.
That's the problem with these kind of attacking positions in a rapid game. It's very fun analyzing the possibilities and like playing around with the pieces and
Yeah.
being pretty liberal about how much you're trying to preserve the stuff of the people whose game you're analyzing. But when you're playing, making the decision to sacrifice is so tricky because you don't have the time to be fully convinced that this is going to be okay.
Absolutely. And so wait, she did make the trade as you were advocating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's there's a logic to it when you only need a draw, right? But positionally, this is not amazing for white anymore, right? Because black has really good dark squared control.
I take back what I said. I mean, Carissa might still be exiting the tournament, but this game isn't over yet. Did something happen in Alice's game?
Alice is suddenly a massive favorite in hers. Wow. Tatev didn't get her knight to d4 as quickly as possible. Yeah, no, this is a very clearly a pressure got to her moment. Everything she had done was to set up the knight getting to the d4 square. And then she just ended up not doing it. It's very, very strange. And yeah, now...
But maybe, I mean, let's just show actually in that line after knight d4, the reason the engine dropped, it could very well be that she has seen this, that after knight d4, bishop g4, And I'm threatening to take on d4 and play bishop e6. Right? Or is it not that
Yeah.
simple? Rook e8?
I don't know. What if I just move the king? We still
Yeah.
have the ideas to trap the bishop, right?
Yeah, no, this is not obvious at all. I don't
But
even
you could actually
understand.
make the same argument for what happened in the game.
Hmm.
So even though the eval spiked very massively for Alice, what I find interesting is that bishop g4 is not the recommended move. Because I assumed you want to do something like this to prevent the knight from getting into the center of the board. But here now, for once, trapping the bishops is actually good for black.
Yeah, so I think my point is void, right? About why she didn't go to d4 ASAP, as you were saying.
Well, I think that made sense, but it turns out she may still have that idea now.
Hmm.
I would still argue she could have just done it immediately, but the game is not as over as the eval bar may seem to suggest. Ooh, but Alice finds the top move. Why can we not just go here?
Yeah, a5.
Oh, maybe now bishop here. And the same idea that if the knight
Yeah.
comes into the center, you sacrifice your rook in order to set up the bishop pointing down on the queen and the. Yeah, no, that's pretty good.
I think
Okay,
very.
Alice is going to win that. That's a very very nice game from her.
Where do we
And
go
let's
next?
no, we got to see this game with
Hmm.
Carissa because, like you said, Carissa is potentially getting knocked out here. But the G4 just going at everything at the Black King strategy has gotten the chess engines a bit disappointed. And after the trade, Carissa has managed to activate her bishop. The bishop is pointing towards the rook in the corner. She also wants to bring the rook to point down on all of these white pieces on the C file.
And just
And
like that, I
this,
would say she's back in the game, right?
yeah, this is very much alive and
Yeah.
kicking well, for both parties. Of
I
course,
would actually
Nasi
be a
could
little
still
bit.
win this.
I would be worried about the c file. We talked earlier about rook c8. I mean, now the black bishop is pointing down at c2 as well. I'd be very worried, very scared to take the pawn on b4 as white and open further lines in front of my king. Maybe it's possible, but a lot easier to make a move like that when you're an engine. Now the queen comes in as well.
Also, Carissa's king is reasonably safe because all of these ways that we want to give checks in towards it is being stopped by that doubled pawn formation.
Yeah, so this game still, as you're saying, very much kicking. A game that isn't kicking as much is Wesley So against Levon Aronian, where we will see where we will see a handshake any moment here when we see a final trade on f2, and these players will be going to a blitz playoff, which is
Yeah, no, you were about to say what I was going to ask.
which is scheduled to start an hour 15 from now. So
What?
hopefully, yeah, today I checked the schedule before we started, and the games were scheduled and the losers in the elimination bracket every 2 hours. I mean, at least the first rapid
But
and the
why
second.
schedule every 2 hours when the games last an hour?
I guess 25 plus 10, let's say they always have to calculate for the max, right? Let's say it's 100 moves, then it's what, 50 minutes?
180 moves. If you're gonna go
Yeah.
max, right?
But you do the maths. With the 30-second, I'm good, but with the 10
Um,
second,
so the 10-second 180,
that's 20
that's
seconds times 180,
divided by
3,600
60.
seconds. That's an hour, no? If we're not
Yeah,
crazy.
maybe. I I've just been pretending to calculate.
Well,
if I'm
I think
honest.
together, you gave me something, I gave you something. I think we might have, and then we get exactly to the 2 hours. Suddenly it makes sense with your 180 move. I think what's gonna happen is no blitz will start before Alice and Tate finish. But
Ah, that's true. That's true. That's
if
also part of it.
if they finish soon, then I think the blitz games will most likely be brought forward. I mean, at some point in the tournament, they started earlier than planned. So that's my prediction. So far, we have one match going to blitz. Will we get another?
Let's check in with the El Clasico of matchups. The reason we've been researching former U.S. women's chess champions, it's the many-time winner Satonsky against the even more many times winner Crush. Irina has the edge here because she won the first rapid game. And look at this percentages in her to her advantage, Irina, right now. And she also, it's very clear why they are advantageous. She's going to be able to get both of her rooks working together, put some pressure on all of this stuff. And then maybe even the bishop can pay a visit afterwards against the c5 pawn. It seems. Oh, and look at this knight maneuver also. So yeah, this guy's in trouble. This stuff is in trouble. I find it very difficult to believe that Irina would, well, lose this game. Not to mention, I think she's gonna win it.
Meanwhile, in the Paikitsa Yip game, the bar has swung in Nazi's favor again. Why is that? It feels like nothing
Clumsy
much happened.
organization of the pieces potentially.
Mhm.
With this bishop, Paikitsa has solidified her defenses around
She's
her king.
also threatening Queen f4, attacking the bishop and the pawn. Although maybe there's, oh, there is d6 I hadn't even seen. Okay, Carissa attacks c2, but c2 is well protected for now. What happens if I do go Queen f4?
Engine
Nothing
really
good.
hates it.
Yeah.
Not entirely clear to me why that is.
I thought
I
this.
mean, how crazy is this?
And maybe black can force a... Okay, but if the best that black has, so Queen f6?
Okay, so here Carissa has given up a full rook, and the engine even prefers black's position. That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know if it prefer. I think it's saying black has a perpetual, right? But white is the one who will have to find the only moves to stay safe. So again, not over, but Queen f4, as we saw, was not the best. Instead, Rook d e1. The computers
Well,
are telling.
h5 was played, and that
Oh,
was the
h5.
best.
Oh, h5. She found the best move. Very nice.
And now knight f2, maybe? Just attack the bishop, get the bishop away from pointing at the king.
Pistons asks, where is Divya? I don't know where she is, but she's certainly not in the American Cup. What do we think, Hammer? Is Nazi gonna wrap this one up? Queen
I
f2.
remains complicated in my opinion, and not a clear path to a win for Pykids.
Meanwhile, wow, let's go back to Sevian Dominguez. That has
The
changed a lot.
eval bar has equalized, but the hope of Sevian winning remains very bleak, as far as I can tell. White has the two pawns in the center, but once you start pushing these forward, you open up some of the diagonals for the black bishops. So in order to neutralize the bishops, you probably have to stay pretty put with these pawns, and then you're not going to win a game that way. Also, why was this a mistake?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking, okay, a rook is under attack. Where do I want to put it? I thought C1 is the obvious square.
I mean, we can be like freaky and do something like this, because then we get a very safe square for our bishop in the long term. But beyond that, I'm not sure what was so wrong with this.
Can we
Because
take?
you are immediately attacking this pawn.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is interesting. Engine recommending bishop c6. I just discounted that because I thought, well, then the pawn can attack the bishop, and if the bishop has to move, bam, the rook is involved in an attack against the king. But the problem is if you move this one up, the bishop comes in from the corner, and in the other corner, a king is checkmated.
That king on the H file, I mean, it felt safer when the pawn was on D4 and a pawn on F2, but suddenly the pawn on D4 was gone, the pawn on F2 was gone, and checkmate ensued.
How is the time situation? Sam Sevian way down on time still. And that's something he's had to live with ever since that opening. Because Dominguez has been immaculately prepared 2 rapid games in a row, playing instantaneously until move 16 in both his games today.
Okay, let's bring up all the boards again. Wow, let's go back to Nazi. Her advantage keeps growing and growing.
Well, actually, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah, let's stay here.
Because that decision to capture the pawn in the center actually means Sevian has the eval in his
what's funny?
For a couple of seconds at least.
You know what's funny is that I wanted to suggest bishop takes d4, and I actually stopped myself because I thought, nah, that's too much. I can't give up c7 with a check and the king so open and the queen tied down to defending my a4 bishop. Nah, I thought I'm not even gonna suggest that. Hammer's gonna laugh at that suggestion, but it was Dominguez's choice. And is there any danger?
I mean, the king seems fairly
open.
It seems open.
But it's also well protected by the bishop and the queen.
Yeah, there's some control here in the area around the king. So if Sevian loses this, well, if Sevian does not win this game, he's out of the tournament.
I think earlier I'd written him off. Now I think at least there's some chances.
Yeah.
But he will need to speed up because if he plays on increment against Lenier with 5 minutes, we saw earlier what can happen in such a situation.
I think Dominguez is going to spend some time here because he does have that time edge, and he is going to want to use that time edge now to figure out how to keep his king safe. So we're going to go to someone else who needs to win, not to be knocked out of the tournament. And that is Carissa Yip, who, she is in trouble. It's equal on number of pieces and pawns and whatnot, but it's not equal on who has more pieces close to their own king. Oh, and just as I say that, Irina Krush has made a big blunder. Double question mark from Irina in a moment where it was just about to say, like, Irina is putting the finishing touches on Satonsky to kick her out of the tournament.
Why is this such a big blunder?
Well, queen d3, that was the good move because now the rook is attacking the queen is protecting the knight, and the queen is attacking the knight.
And the knight is undefendable. Wow.
So with the queen moving up, you can take the knight, even though you leave your knight undefended, because then queen takes bishop. And this is a blunder Irina did with plenty of time on the clock. And in fact, Irina had a winning position here. So she went from having a massive edge to long term, definitely managing to capture this pawn until she did it prematurely when Satoransky was down to less than a minute on the clock, and suddenly Satoransky might be able to bring this to a blitz playoff, but that is not going to be the case for Carissa, who just as we left her board, I got so surprised by Irina's blunder that I left this board just as it was being decided. The king moves into the diagonal of the white bishop, and queen takes e4 is a nice way for Pike Kids to decide this game. The queen cannot be captured due to the bishop's pin.
Congratulations to Nazi, who moves on in the tournament. It's the end of the road for Carissa Yip. So Nazi will be playing the winner tomorrow of the match between Zatonsky and Crush. Let's actually go back there now because, I mean, Irina must be kicking herself. She's gonna drop the knight on d7.
And at the end of all of these captures, Irina did manage to get 2 pawns in trade for a knight. That is salvageable.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised, but it's only
Ooh, never
salvageable if you
mind.
hold on to those pawns. Oh, the rook is under attack as well. Yeah, if say 6-6 drops, what do you think? Salvageable no more?
Not so much anymore. Those 2
Mm.
pawns working together was a big part of me thinking that there's still hope. But with the white knight getting that fork, about to eliminate the pawn on c6, it's not just that you lose a pawn, it's also that you lose the whole coordination, right? Because this pawn was blocking the rook from getting into the game. It was protecting its buddy. When the pawn collapses, it will ease the rook's ability to get into the game. And it's also going to create some massive weaknesses here. So now check and rook up, that seems pretty straightforward to me. That is another piece dropping off the board as far as I can see.
When it rains, it pours. It looks very much like this match will also go to Blitz playoff. Eltor in chat is asking what happened in Alice's game. Let's just wait for Rook C7 to appear here because I think that might be the final move of the game.
Irina cannot resign when her opponent has
Yeah,
40
that's true. Okay,
seconds.
let's go to Alice Lee against Tatev.
So we did have some discussions here. Knight to e6 was played, and then bishop g4. Great move. If the knight moves further forward, there will be a sacrifice to give up the rook for the knight in order to set up the bishop pointing at the queen and king. So instead, Tatev just protects the knight, hopes to get here on the next move. Pawn a5, good move, puts pressure on the knight. Keep in mind that if you try to trap the queen, the bishop comes in to take out the knight, and that's a bit of a problem because the knight was defending this rook, and also now the bishop is attacking against the queen. So therefore, Tatev instead felt the need to chase the queen back, but you still have to deal with the threat against the knight. And the key here is that when this knight moves back, Alice will be able to trade her bishop for the black knight. If the black knight were to get to this d4 square, then it would block the queen and rook and everything happening here through the center of the board. But I think just take it out, and that's the end of that knight's hopes of being well placed.
Rook
Rook D8. I think we can do the same thing. Just takes, move the queen. This is similar to what we were just looking at. Just make sure that that black knight is unable to jump into the d4 square. That should be Alice's priority.
Mhm. Okay, so back to Sevi and Dominguez.
Yes, because the king remains poorly protected, but somehow maybe not enough for Sevian to strike back.
Let's see, rook.
Rook d5, maybe make a trap. Wait, what is happening on bishop takes here? I guess now there's no longer queen h5 checkmate because the rook is controlling here.
Mhm.
But that also means that Sevian cannot move his rook off this 5th rank. Then this f5 square seems very logical because then you move the rook that's under attack and you also protect your pawn. And then if bishop moves to attack the queen attacks the bishop. And if we manage to chase the bishop back, maybe we can even start pushing through the center. Both players being very low on time now.
Yeah,
I think
Dominguez really
we'll
has
stick
caught
with
up.
this actually, because
We've had a
Irina
result.
has resigned.
Yeah. So that matchup, the classical, goes to playoff, blitz playoff. Let's go to Sevian against Dominguez.
Exclamation point for that bishop move. What happens now if the rook attacks the bishop? The bishop then can attack the queen and the rook, but then the queen attacks the bishop. Bishop takes pawn. And this is good for black, who's attacking 2 rooks at the same time. Instead, Sevian keeps his rook. That's a weird rook placement. Is that rook not just trapped? Wait, Fiona, what's going on here?
Okay, maybe I can play rook f7. And if you take, I take on a8.
Ooh. That is very clever. Is that what's going to happen? Bishop e5 is on. Wow.
Just
You
ask
called
me,
it.
Hammer. So rook f7, but actually rook f7 is potentially very strong, right? Because now we're hitting the bishop on d7. What happens if...
But what if bishop c6? Because your queen needs to defend here.
Yeah.
So then you have to go queen here. That's not great.
No. And that's what he does. 5 seconds for Sam. You can defend.
There's queen b3 to defend. So he manages to keep the queens on the board. That's important due to the safety concerns of black's king. Both players down to 30 seconds.
This is not over. I mean, Sam could still mount a comeback here. It's not even clear. I mean, there's no obvious way forward now for black, right?
No, but there's no obvious way for white either, I would say.
That is true.
This rook is kind of continuously stuck.
Yeah, that rook needs to move ASAP.
Very interesting variation being proposed here, which I think is fairly likely. Queen d5, only good move, says Engine. Why? But now bishop c6. Is this not the same we saw earlier? Rook f8, winning move.
But why?
Because here, no matter where you go, you're going to lose your bishop. If you go to the left,
Oh my
queen
God.
attacks both the king and the bishop. If you go up, Queen attacks both the king and the bishop, and if you block with your queen, you've left your rook undefended.
Will he find it?
He doesn't find it.
I don't think it
Wow.
was easy. Or do you?
No, that was. I mean, I think that was easy compared to a lot of other things.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh no, but he's gonna make the same blunder again. No. If Sevian had moved his queen back to d5 there, he would have had a second chance.
True. But I think in these spots, if you don't spot it the first time around with under 20 seconds, it's very hard to spot it the second time.
Well,
But then on the other
he
hand,
had
yeah,
25 seconds for the first one.
You have to do
Oh, he
something
gets a
different.
second chance.
But only if he plays bishop b. Oh god.
Oh, and he misses it a second time.
But he's still better, even though queen c5 is a miss. Suddenly black is better here, and black has to be very careful here.
Yeah, rook b5, apparently the best move, but that allows the rook to attack both the queen and the king. Not something you really want to allow.
Queen f5. Hello, checkmate.
It's
Or
not even close to checkmate, though.
on h7.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind
once
of
again,
close.
this bishop sometimes is undefended.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's going to go here because that's the easy part. But then, oh, he misses it again.
Very, very tense final moments here. Five seconds. Rook b1, the only move to keep an
Rook
advantage.
b5 apparently now is okay, but that's impossible to find because this includes giving up your. Oh. Oh. Never mind. Maybe he can find rook b5. Very difficult. Oh, he blunders his queen. What the heck is going on with this tournament? We've seen some blunders, but just giving up the queen like that is
my God.
wild.
The clown fiesta continues. Even in the rapid portion, we're not safe. Nice effect there on the board. Well played, Sharon. That was mental. I mean, we've seen a lot of blunders in this tournament, but we were yet to see the infamous Botas Gambit.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it was a very tough position for Dominguez. He never really solved the issue of his king safety. It was very strange how he allowed the white rook to really get involved. There was this moment in the game where he basically could have done anything and just prevent the rooks from getting in and attacking the king. But he allowed the rook to get involved, and that really, yeah, that cost him dearly. Because one thing is not having a lot of pawns around your king, but then in addition allowing the opponent's rook to get involved, that is some shaky business.
And yeah, he paid the price for it, Sam. I mean, what did I say? Sam is almost out of the tournament. He'll be out in a minute. No, I have to eat my words.
We were ready to send both Anna Satonsky and Sam Savian home and thank them for their contributions, but they said no. We're
And look
not
who's
done.
in the chat. GMHikaru saying, I mean, I thought I was playing badly. This is something else.
I guess we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, I was debating also between the break or because I have received.
This game will still be ongoing in 7 minutes, right?
Yeah, it will be. But the thing I've received confirmation that that the playoffs will start half an hour past the hour, so in 53 minutes from now. Okay, we will take a break now. We will discuss with our producer how to proceed, and we will either come back soon or But we should see the end of this game, right?
Yeah, I think Alice has played it very well, and
Okay, let's take
Tate
a
might
quick break.
crumble.
We'll take a quick break. I think our 7-minute break. We'll come back, see the end of this game, and then there'll probably be a longer break where we play some videos for you guys or something until the Blitz playoffs. So do stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes with the end of this game, and then Blitz playoffs start half past. So just under an hour from now. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.
By Hikaru Nakamura, who had a very quick draw today against Fabiano. Hikaru, can you tell?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what happened. Either I confused a move order or I just had the wrong variation. Basically, I'm not sure if I should have played this queen takes c4 and bishop c3 order, or I should have played a different line with knight e5. I mean, obviously, don't want to give away too much, but something went wrong. And so when Fabiano played this a6 and b5, sacking the knight, I mean, I had this tough decision where Fabiano is clearly very well prepared. He hasn't used any time, and I have to decide, do I want to play on in a position where I'm on my own and Fabiano is still in prep and I'm going to be down on time, or just sort of bail out and make the draw? And ultimately, I decided to bail out and make the draw. It's not really what I wanted to do, but to me, it felt like just a bad decision to play on, because I thought even if I got this queen, I play this queen d3 move instead of taking the knight, I didn't really see an advantage, and I felt like only bad things can happen. I mean, I think Fabiano is obviously a very strong player, goes without saying. And so I'm going to be down on time. I'm not going to have a better position, and like I don't see any positive outcome from that. So that's why I took the draw. And I mean, perhaps it's a bit disappointing, but on the other hand, I mean, we've also been playing. It's like the 5th day in a row of playing classical chess, so it does take a toll, especially when you add in the tie breaks. So yeah, it's not what I was hoping for. I mean, the result is fine. I would have liked the game to have gone longer, but you know, that's chess.
What are you going to do with all this extra time, given that you finished within half hour?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, I think I'll do a recap, but I'm not sure. But obviously, the game is short enough that I can go back and wait for the Fed minutes and see what happens in the market. So that'll be at least nice, because I think that's happening like 15, 20 minutes. So I guess I'll do that. You know, and I think, yeah, I'll probably try to get ready for the game tomorrow. Just do some preparation. My stepfather is also here, so maybe I'll go out for a nice dinner. That would be good as well. But I mean, there's a bit of a routine to everything, and I'll just you know figure it out as we go.
Will you watch any of the other matches taking place between the playoffs and the elimination bracket, or the classical matches?
Yeah, I mean, I think since I'm here, definitely I'll pay some attention. For example, there was a game between Seven and Dominguez, which looked like some kind of very deep preparation. But the problem was I only saw like move 19, so I was trying to figure out how they caught the position, because the board only shows the previous 4 moves, and I couldn't quite work it out. But I'll be paying close attention to those games just to see if anything interesting happens, and to see who survives. So yeah, I'll look at them.
And final question, do you have a pick for who's going to be the winner in the women's section?
You mean the winner of the classical match, or the winner overall?
Overall.
Oh, overall. Okay, because someone can get back there. Yeah, I think it's hard to judge. Before this first rapid game, I probably would have thought that Carissa had the best chances to win overall. But it feels like she's been pretty shaky with her play here. It doesn't feel like her preparation has been very good, and she just lost this very, very bad game to Nazi with the white pieces. Of course, she could come back and win the second one, and I mean, who knows what will happen in rapid. But I would have predicted that she was a favorite, but it just feels like something's a little bit off with her. So based off of that, I think that I would have to go with Alice, just being the clear favorite then, because she seems to be relatively on form. She's playing well. Of course, Irina has great class, so anything could happen. But Alice feels like the person who she should be the favorite. But again, anything can happen.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much for joining. I'll let you go, and we'll send it back to the studio.
Moment. It is the women's final between Alice Lee and Tatev Abrahamian. We've been following this since the beginning. Alice has played a wonderful game, and Hammer, is she getting closer to winning it?
Maybe not, if I'm honest, because even though she has a very dominating position, all her pieces are better placed than her black counterparts, she doesn't have an extra pawn or anything like that. And this is kind of reminiscent of the position Hikaru had against Dominguez yesterday, where it's obvious you're much better, but if you don't manage to find the breakthrough, the game is just going to end in a draw. Now, Hikaru did find the breakthrough yesterday, and there's a fair chance Alice will find it today, given that Abrahamian is down to just 3.5 minutes for the rest of the game. There is no additional time after 40 moves. So her practical chances are very good, but keep in mind that Tatev is only 2 moves away from getting her knight into a fantastic placement where it will really put some spanner in the works for the white rooks. So
Yeah. This
not
game,
over.
Not over whatsoever. Chaiton, I'm afraid I have bad news regarding your hot take. So Chaiton's hot take is that they think this game will still be going when the Blitz games start. The Blitz games will not start until this game is over. And yeah, so it was an interesting take, but unfortunately, I think the Blitz games would be delayed if this was still going. Maybe it's still a hot take. Yeah, it is 5:30. I received that information from St. Louis. So from that we can deduce, right, Hammer, that the game will be over. Although he couldn't
Yeah,
have
and I just want to point out that now
Yeah.
there's a nice trap. If the queen moves back in order to give the knight space to move forward, there is some trickery here with knight takes on f6, threatening the rook with a check on the king. And if bishop takes knight, trade, and suddenly the bishop that was protecting the black rook has disappeared, allowing white to simply take the rook and win the game. So big moment right now. The threat against this f6 pawn is very serious, and it has to do with the defense of the d8 rook in the long term.
I mean, Black's only move, according to the engine, is rook takes d5, which is not a move you want to make.
But actually, it might not be such a bad idea, because after takes, you lose out on the idea on your plan to get the knight to the d4 square. But on the other hand, maybe there's a new plan that springs to life with pawn to c4. If Alice doesn't really do anything here, pawn c4, yeah, sure, that pawn is going to be in trouble, but then you go bishop c5. Oh no, you cannot go bishop c5. There's a checkmate on the other side. Yeah, no, that long term, very much gonna stay there forever pressure in towards the black king is no.
Yeah.
Tatev has a difficult job ahead.
I think especially with 1 minute on the clock, she's under such tremendous pressure on the board, and I think no surprise that we see a move that gets a double question mark, because defending this with 1 minute is just too difficult. So Chaiton, just to finish, the main thing I was saying is, in general, the Blitz games, if this game was still going at half past, the Blitz games would wait. In no case would they start while a classical game is still going. So that was the main reason that, unfortunately. But your point remains of maybe this game would still be going at 4:30, but at half past. But I think it was too optimistic given the time situation of Tatev and the problems she was facing. Now, Hammer, what is the move that Alice needs to find here?
Well, Alice gets the opportunity to end off a fantastic game with a fantastic finish, and she finds it. The double exclam, rook d6. She sacrifices the rook to lure the black bishop away, and then the bishop comes in, check and checkmate. Look at that. The bishop and knight works together for the checkmate on the black king. That is beautiful. And yeah, Alice really showing where she excels. First, she had that very nice positional pawn sacrifice with the knight moving into the e6 square earlier. But she can not only make positional pawn sacrifices, here it is the brute force calculation that takes Abrahamian down.
Yeah, and after rook d6, the problem is, what if the queen drops back to f7? Then we have rook takes f6. This is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I feel like maybe you just take with the. I would maybe even want to take with the knight, take with the bishop and then the knight, maybe. I feel like something like this should be fine as well. My thing is that, so queen f7 is going to be played, and it was. But now, if rook takes, I'm like, why are we allowing queen takes c4? But there's knight takes on e5. And if the queen continues grabbing stuff over here, you would assume that you're winning something. And you are.
And you are. Will she play rook f6? I think Alice, she's on a roll, you know, she's been spotting everything. I wouldn't be surprised. She still has 12 minutes, so I also wouldn't be surprised if she invests a little bit of time right here, because she must sense that, you know, just a couple more accurate moves and this game is done. So I think here she will invest a little bit of time. The good news for her is I think that all 4 captures on f6 are all winning.
Yeah, even the queen captures is winning, because then even the extra queen is not going to save black against this setup with the bishop and knight we saw previously.
Yeah. So she can't really, the good news for Alice is she can't step wrong. It's just some of the captures are more straightforward, like lead to a more straightforward win than others, but she can do no wrong here.
And
What's your
means...
prediction, Hammer? Which piece? I think it will be the rook.
I agree. I think she's enjoying herself. I think she's very happy with how she has played this game, and she's going to be focused on finishing the game as crushingly as possible, as stylishly as possible, and from a chess aesthetics point of view, rook takes is the most stylish, and she's branded with a second brilliant in a row.
What a game by Alice. I mean, so what's her accuracy, just out of curiosity, because it feels like she played, okay, 93. Was there one thing she missed?
There was one moment
that?
where the engine didn't like her move, this knight to e3. We actually talked about it, how the bishop to g4 move was very difficult because it involved getting her bishops trapped. But other than that one move, she played a perfect game.
Very, very impressive stuff from the young player. Let's go back to the live position to catch the final moments, as Tatev has indeed captured on c4.
And resigned. We have the camera up.
After knight e5, yeah, after knight takes e5, resigned. We saw the handshake, we saw the arbiter collect the score sheets, and now the two players having a short discussion here. They are the only ones in the playing hall, so they do not need to worry about talking. They can analyze at their heart's content. And that concludes this part of the show for us. The next part will involve some blitz, which will be very, very exciting. The famous clown fiesta is back. Although we have already seen our fair share of blunders today, I think it's not over yet. We will see three matches.
Three matches.
I wrote Sam off once again. So in the open section, both matches went to blitz. So we'll see Wesley So against Levon Aronian, Sam Savian against Linnea Dominguez. And in the women's section, we'll see the Classico continue as Anna Zatonsky struck back in game 2 against Irina Krosh. So plenty of action ahead. We will be back in half an hour. For the next half hour, we will play some videos for you. So do not, well, you can go somewhere for half an hour if you wish, but do come back in half an hour as we look at the Blitz games. See you there.
I told you, the heavy hitters. I told you. The heavy hitters. Wow. I told you. I know what's up around here.